Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, the Leo King, and happy holidays, everybody. Happy end of quite a year, 2020. Uh, we just had our Christmas, kind of, I guess you could say, party here at High Vibe today, so it's why I am later, and also I chose to do this week's Deep Astrology on a more personal level, not on the main set, but here in I don't know. Yeah, we have so many sets here, but just from my own kind of spaceship set. And I thought I would transmit this message, of course, on the app highvibe.tv, where this show is always exclusive, where you get to see the charts. Although today, this show's gonna be a little different. It's gonna be a little of the channeling and then going back and forth. We got a lot of things coming up here in the astrology that's pretty intense, and it's the holidays and want to be able to give to everybody and have everybody tune into this message for this week. But of course, you can show your support by joining highvibe.tv, by just going to it, or downloading the app by just searching High Vibe TV Spiritual Network on your Apple or your Android, or of course going on Apple TV or Roku, and being a subscriber, getting the daily video horoscopes and so much more of our awesome content. We're doing about 40 shows a week, so it's a ton of content, and we are able to say exactly what we want. I also want to tell people, especially on my YouTube, because I've said it to everybody on High Vibe already, that, when it comes to IG and FB, I am playing kindergarten. That's what they want me to do. So I have just made recently a Telegram group that's public, and that's what is the link for that here? It is t.me/the Leo King High Vibe TV, where I post stuff, right? And then I also am on Parler. I actually really am enjoying Parler a lot. I kind of was on the fence about it at first, but I'm able to say what I want and post pictures and post videos and post a bunch of stuff. So my Parler is at the Leo King. And then I just post a bunch of stuff on here. And this is where I'm doing more of my social media stuff. But actually, I'm also starting. I've done blogs for years. You can watch all or read all my blogs on the leoking.com, but now highvibe.tv for free, on the website at least. I'll show you all here, and we'll take a little examination of what's going on here. So when you go to highvibe.tv, if you click this blog section right here, so like here's one, it's a blast of the past, but I'm gonna be doing a lot more written blogs. This way, it's on my own network. It's on High Vibe. I can say what I want to say when it comes to the astrology. I feel that Jupiter and Saturn, that's been opposing my Sun as they met here in Aquarius, and opposing my 0-degree Leo. Sun has made me realize, it really is about new ways for me to get my message out there and utilizing, these new systems opposed to the ones we're conditioned under. And so that's what I've done with my horoscopes since I started, which saying the collective consciousness a decade ago was looked at as crazy. It was always the collective unconscious. That seemed to take hold pretty fast after hearing it every day off my channel. But this is also some of the older blogs that I wrote about and how you can start to see the connections to today. But I'm also going to be producing a lot of free content on High Vibe. So when you go to High Vibe, and when you go to the watch section right here, all you have to do is you'll see. So I'm not signed in right now. It shows I'm live on High Vibe, right? So if you wanted to be here, this is for members, right? So, but I should have probably made it free since I'm free on YouTube right now. But these are all the content that you're missing every day, and all your weekly horoscopes and so forth. Like just every day, I do a daily video. Like Wednesday's today video, all of your sun sign horoscopes. Tuesday, Deep Love Tarot, of course, that's free. All 12 sun signs if you just want it in one video. Monday, your weekly intuitive, your weekly tarot, your weekend horoscope, and then, of course, Deep Astrology in its full format. And then, of course, there's full disclosure. Craig's been out for the last couple weeks. All the spiritual dance music are here for free, but that's a bunch of that stuff. But I wanted to show you there's a section, and it's on the app too, which is free. You can download the app and watch all this stuff for free. It's the High Vibe Picks featured free content. So whatever's free, it all goes down this list. You can watch my pre-2020 survival guide, all the stuff of my predictions about 2020 that was a paid video for free. I mean, it's like, right, I just showed you, I'm not even logged in, right? Like, it's all free. This is 2 hours and 32 minutes. This was a video that originally was a paid video. I'm just trying to give all the best information I can out to people. And so you can click see all, even on the app, and go down it all. All the tour videos that I've done through the 2018 tour around the nation. Some of Are You Surviving 2020 so far, and the predictions I was making about relationships this year. The Era of Providence, which I did on December 31st, 2019, about 2020, and going deeper into this decade of Providence. This one's one I cannot even put on YT. Frequencies and holograms. This was the one that you all saw me predict, a PLAGUE. And this one goes back to August with Sarah Delane. But the stuff that we talk about there, stuff about cellular devices and stuff like that, I can only put it on here. There's nowhere else I can put it. It's been banned every time I try to put it up anywhere else. So that's why I'm moving everything onto here. Of course, I'm going to be on YouTube and do as much as I can and push the limits. But of course, I got to speak in code and so forth. And there's tons of free stuff that always is just being added. And we've worked really hard on this network for a long time. That's what creates this show. And that's what creates this, YouTube video channel. And I'm not going to stop doing YouTubes or stop giving you all Deep Love Tarot or stop doing Deep Astrology and at least giving you the audio portion when we go in the charts. But this is all the kind of stuff that you're missing out on. Plus, we have the school. And I think it's important just for people to know about all this stuff because I talk about it, but sometimes people don't really maybe understand or don't look at it. And I get it, it's a crazy world out there. But if you want to like my Love Masterclass, which is it's 40 hours of astrology. It's $150. It's 40 hours. You will learn astrology, you will learn your love story, but more importantly, I cover it all. It was honestly probably the best class I ever taught. But the High Vibe TV Lightworkers School has so many different courses and all of the different courses, and Erica has courses, and we have other courses that are being built right now by other High Vibe people. But that's also part of the High Vibe TV network when you click on the school tab at the top. So we also send notifications as well onto your phone. So it doesn't matter what device you're on, if you're on iPhone, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Android TV, but Fire TV, it's taking a minute. So there's been a lot of lag with Amazon for some reason. But everywhere else you have access to High Vibe for free just by downloading it to get to the free content. If you click content and it's paired to the subscription, then it's part of the subscription. The last thing that I'm going to promote here, just because this is information, I'm coming to screen here. This is just information I really believe that everybody that follows astrology and everything, to get your heads up. Because this is not a normal, it's not going to be okay, 2020 is over and 2021 is going to be some kind of I don't know, it's just going to go back to the way it was in 2019 or something. You're going to see a continuation and things are about to get really weird. And so I just wanted to remind people that I put the content out there to help you understand all that stuff. So when you go to the watch section, these are where I do these specials on High Vibe TV that are very long and give you more of what people want. So it's 2020 Shattered Reality. Of course, I'm sure maybe you've seen the trailer, maybe you didn't. You can watch the trailer here. It's 4 hours and 50 minutes long. And some of the comments are looking for, in honor of creator A, a lot of people, they love it. So it helps you with understanding 2021, but goes into a lot of stuff. This is a long view, but well worth the investment of time and money. So, that's what I do when I do a paid video. For some reason, I think there's some YouTubers who just, skim past a lot of things. That's why I'm kind of extending this here for a second. To help people understand that it's not even about the business or anything like that. It's about the information. But it's like I can't just do it in the fashion that I do it at and have all the talent and create the home in a time where we're all running to different platforms now to try and see. And this is what I've been building for years. For 6 years, I've had an app for astrology and video and getting the truth out without being censored. And it's all moving towards this. And so with the blogs, you can comment. And of course, every video you can comment. But the social media element of all this is the next wave of what I'm working on now. For people that love astrology and love truth, to be able to go and have a full home with all the videos, with everything, with community forums, with blogs, where they can contribute, where they can post. And I'm on that last portion. So, that's what's really happening for those that are on my YouTube that don't come to the side of High Vibe to see. And, there's so much there. It's so much. And every spiritual dance music's free as well. So just because some people, and I'm kind of waiting for people to come in this room live just to make sure we got people watching today. And then of course we have the whole women's lifestyle and spirituality network with all of those shows. And full disclosure, of course, is probably one of our top shows actually. But all the spiritual dance musics that I've done for, I don't know, I've been doing them for 10 years. So, there's a lot on YouTube and stuff, but just starting from September 27th of 2019, every single new moon and full moon, all of them are here for free to watch with no stopping, every single one. So some of them that didn't make it on YouTube, they're on here, they're free. Look at, I'm not logged in, sign in, right? I can just pick one. And you can, when you're on your cell, it's just like having YouTube Premium. Like, you don't have to, stop the message, or, you could put it up in a corner, the video. You can do all that stuff. And it's all here in full live form. This was a 4-hour spiritual dance music. Oh, that was my Sunday morning session. Some of them stay up on YouTube, some of them get blocked. But when we go live, it's full there. So just wanted to put that out there to people, and let y'all know what's going on. So hope everybody's doing good on this holiday. So as we go into this week, I'm covering this week for the astrology horoscope for December the 24th, since that's what it is for me right now, Christmas Eve through the 29th on this full moon in Cancer that we're going to have of 2020. So I can really come next week, especially on Wednesday, and do a deep astrology for the end of the year and into the new year. I always, every year, also do a year of the end, what did I used to call it? Transmission, or it was like my end of the year address. And where the astrology is going kind of in 2021, kind of in a quicker aspect than the 4-hour and 50-minute, 2021 Shadow Reality video. So that's going to be coming up next week. But let's talk about this week. So this is not your typical deep astrology, but it is in the sense of, I'm going to talk about the astrology first and then go into the charts. Although I kind of feel like kind of going off the cuff at Aquarius and just kind of, let's just see what's going on. I want to take you right in. So here we are today. It's December 24th, 2:29 a.m. is when I'm doing this. And as we look at the sun and we look at it from Earth's point of view, it's past that galactic center, as you can see, that galactic center line, which is, of course, the pink line that is coming down at an angle, which, of course, you would see that from Earth as like a 23-degree angle, right? So it's kind of interesting that we are through this galactic center of the sun. Sun's down in Capricorn and so forth. But what's really interesting is we just saw, as I've been showing you all, that Jupiter-Saturn from Earth's angle. So even though, yes, we saw a lot of video, I went down to the beach on Sunday last week. That was it right there, December 21st. So like from Earth's view, bang, right? So it came into a question into my own life. I was like, okay, so, here we go to actual time. So it's like, okay, so what's the big stuff coming up? Now that that's happened, and especially the stuff that comes from more of the helio point of view, which is what we're seeing right now, right? We're seeing the sun at the center of the chart, and we're seeing it from like I'm actually maneuvering things myself with the Earth to kind of show you from Earth's angle or from the sun's angle, and what's going on. So if we come to this week, what's rather interesting to me, there's a couple things. Earth and Mars are definitely splitting off. So if you see here, and we're seeing this also just from the geo point of view, right? As Mars is getting ready to come out of its shadow and move into Taurus soon. But, what we saw during this September and October was the Earth and Mars at their closest. And you're not going to see the Earth and Mars this close again, of course, for almost 2 years, right? It takes 2 years for the Earth and Mars to come this close. So, that's finally coming off. As you saw around that turn, they were still coming together a little bit. And as we're here now into December, we're starting to see the Earth and its orbit. It's, of course, closer to the sun, so it's a lot quicker around the sun, whereas Mars has to go out. And so, that element, though, is about to pop itself out, because it's almost like when you're in the middle of a lot of things happening, it's kind of like when you're in the middle of something in life, right? You're involved, you're in the moment. And there's a reflective energy as a human. But as a planetary energy, there's also the I guess you could call it, whether it's the law of physics, like with every action there's going to be some sort of reaction. And I think that we've been in the action. I think we're about to see the reaction of a lot of this Mars energy that has been happening. Because if we actually take a look at it from Earth's point of view, I mean, as we come back to today, from Earth's point of view, it does look like Mars is in that square, of course, to Pluto, which is just finished, but it's getting ready for the squares to Jupiter and to Saturn. And so that's also going to be, what is behind all this? The planet Uranus. So Mars and Uranus are going to be definitely coming together here from Earth's point of view, as you can start to see as we move through, and we coming up here at the beginning of the year, bang, right? Oh, it's like shifting me so fast. It's like so weird how, like, just, anyway, you can start to see, there we go, like there. So when we come to, ironically enough, you all know that date, what's going to happen on that day. We're going to see Mars on Uranus and the Earth in opposition, right? Like that, or really, if you think about it, it's just the power of Uranus and Mars that are looking directly at Earth, but Earth also looking directly at them. And that Martian energy is nowhere near being done with its crazy energy. So we're going to talk a lot about Mars. Mars is very interesting this week coming up in the astrology. But if we take things back to just kind of ground level, as I was just kind of contemplating a lot of things, there's a lot of other stuff going on that I'm going to show you later in the show tonight. But the big one, if we come back to today, is we are ending this week, of course, with a full moon in Cancer. Now, the last full moon in Cancer was a lunar eclipse in Cancer. I don't know if you all remember that. That was on January 10th. And we had 2 new moons in Cancer. One was a solar eclipse that happened this summer. So there's been a lot of Cancer energies, not only eclipse-wise of 2020, but then there's also been, of course, there's two full moons, one being an eclipse, one not. And then, of course, there was 2 new moons in the same year, one not, one is an eclipse. So this is the last of the new moon or full moon energy, and this one is not an eclipse, but it's coming after Jupiter, Saturn have conjuncted in Aquarius, which has definitely brought us to new chapters in our lives. So to see this full moon is going to be quite interesting, as it's going to be in alignment with Uranus. It's going to be squaring Chiron, And it's also going to be at a time where we are coming into a new year, and we got a lot of different aspects with moons in Cancer, right? Like, that's a lot. That's four Cancer, luminations. That's a lot. And now that Saturn and Jupiter are out of Capricorn, the Sun in Capricorn is definitely, I would say, feeling a lot kind of easier, although it could bring up, wanting to be prepared for what's happening in the world and stuff. Especially, there's going to be a lot to prepare for this week and feeling wise as we do get that full moon, because if we look at it, so there's going to be that full moon that's coming on the 30th, 29th, for me, 30th for some people. And that's going to be at a quite interesting moment as we are finishing, from Earth's point of view, that look of Jupiter and Saturn. We are also at that same time when this is happening, you got to look at it kind of crazy, because if you look at that sextile, right, from the Sun, Earth to Uranus, we also have the kind of interesting element there of Mars. We're going to talk about the Mars element in connection to this moon as well. And that's where you start to get to like semi-squares and stuff, which you can kind of see like that if I back it out a little bit. But that's, of course, a three-dimensional look at the solar system and what's going on. Of course, there's a lot of other quite interesting things happening as the planet Uranus is still in retrograde. That's because Earth has been exactly in the closest realm to it. So, if you take it back, right, the retrograde, of course, has been the most extreme because, of course, Earth, when it's closest to a planet, is the retrograde. The fact that when we start January and we come away is when Uranus comes direct. The last planet to come direct, as we have all the planets direct, including, if you include Chiron as the asteroid there, which I include asteroid in all my astrology, it's a big deal. And we have also seen quite a interesting activation, I would say, about this Uranus energy, for the fact that we've been seeing, Black Moon Lilith and so forth that has been hanging around it. And Uranus is waiting to turn on. And Uranus is the planet to pay attention to astrologically, just for the sheer fact, if we actually think about it, Jupiter and Saturn being in Aquarius makes that the dispositor. So Uranus is the planet to look at now. We were looking at Saturn so much, right? It was Saturn with Pluto on January 12th, 2 days after the lunar eclipse in Cancer. The last full moon in Cancer. So we had two full moons in Cancer this year. One in eclipse, one not. But that January 10th was that lunar. January 12th is when Saturn and Pluto. Then we had Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn, which is in the sign that rules Saturn. So they're disposited by Saturn. So that's why we kept looking at Saturn and kept looking at Saturn. And then Saturn and, of course, Jupiter, which we've just seen. Now, Aquarius does rule Saturn, but I'm a New Age astrologer, and so, yes, I'm going to use Saturn too, but at the same time, Saturn is in Uranus's home, and Uranus is a planet, and it is the planet that is, transcendental. It is past Saturn's line, and it has a very deep karmic story in the mythology with, of course, Saturn, Uranus does, and same with Jupiter, and both happen to be in Uranus's house, and Uranus happens to be not direct. Everything else is moving forward. Everything's waiting on Uranus, which is unpredictability, things turning around crazy. And so we need to remember that. I think that's an edge that people might be feeling in life right now through this week and even into the beginning of the new year. It's not going away. Uranus is not turning direct in 2020. It's turning direct in 2021. So I just really want to emphasize that start focusing on, well, what is happening with Uranus? And I'm going to show you in all the 3D charts this week what is. Now, on some of the more simple bases this week, we got the Sun trining Uranus this week, but it's also going to square Chiron. Christmas, Sun square Chiron. Definitely going to be a weird Christmas. Definitely not going to feel usual. And of course, people will be like, oh, that's easy to predict. Well, Chiron is looking at where our ego and how we identify our life is getting a different look at things, in a very weird look, and almost having to hold on to an identity and an understanding of the identification of life in a way that we don't want to. And especially with the sun in Capricorn, right? It's almost like I would rather have the traditions, Capricorn, be a certain way. Well, no. So it's not going to feel traditional. It doesn't mean you can't still have a great Christmas, though, and it can be very healing by trying something different or new. Especially, we are in very Uranian and Aquarian times, and there's things that I would love to say, although I decided to go public on YouTube, and that's why I had the long intro. Is that there's things that I can't say on here about it. I can't. I think one of the things, and this might go off subject, but this is kind of the Chiron thing too. Think about anybody in the world who decides to step into the role of themselves under these times, right? And say, or be, with North Node and Gemini, be who they want to be. Well, with Chiron and Aries here, can you really be that? It's like you gotta like deal with all these things that are, coming against you. If you go against the narrative, that's the collective story that happens to be like one that we have to make sure that we know with the square to Uranus there, if it's actually valid, if it's worthy, and if it's taking us to, more godly realms, more positive, more physical, truthful realms, and nature itself. One of the things I said in that pre-2020 video last year was what was coming in 2020 was something to scare people that would feel unnatural and not from God. And I think that is something that we need to pay attention to. Now, whether that is humans or whether that is, there's a lot of talk about aliens. There's been a lot of talk about, Israel saying that one of the head, people in space and military there saying that, the Galactic Federation had contacted them and we're not ready as humans yet. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but there's definitely a lot going on that is from out of this world and out of, and there's a lot of dealing with frequency energy. And so when you look at the what that's going around everywhere, do you think it's crazy about what we were saying, like a lot of people at the beginning of the year when it was talking about frequency ranges from from stuff like this, and the new waves of where those are happening and where they have been all year while everybody was non-essential. That was essential though, and upgrading that system. And what was the main reason? I don't know if you all remember, what was that main reason for the idea of putting up this faster frequency system? Was healthcare before this whole thing. And one of the main reasons, if you look at the original reasons why they brought all this out so quick, right, was for a doctor to be able to be anywhere that they want to be, maybe at a certain hospital, and be able to put some robotic arms on, and those robotic arms, though, are actually where you're really at and do the surgery from wherever they want. I mean, that was like that's the sell point. Doesn't mean it's not capable. It definitely is. But there's another hidden element here when it comes to frequencies here. And the frequencies that are messing around with certain individuals, certain people, and also disrupting the vibration of the earth itself. We are also in a major, I don't know why it's not mainstream news in science either, because the mainstream news is that the earth's magnetic field is like down 25%. The polar shift energy is getting closer and closer to where there's no way to predict exact, but we are in the time zone of where we should have already had it, or we will. And so when we start going into these realms, we're talking about very Uranus energy and very Aquarian energy. Everything from aliens, if you want to talk about that, to electromagnetic frequencies. electronics, cyber energies. Like we just had that cyber, you know what, that just hit America. And what happened there? It affected all of us. Somebody went in and took all the info, or the new TOS, you know, that's happening on all these platforms out there. You got to really start to wonder, okay, what's going on and how is it affecting humans? Especially with the square now to Uranus and Taurus, and that rules the throat, it rules the body, and Uranus rules the nerves. And so if you're not solid right now in yourself during this week with Capricorn, the trine to Uranus, like you have to know your authority of your destiny and be excited to go take that. But with the square to Chiron there, if it's like against this idea of how things in the world should look, especially with South Node and Sag, we have Venus and Sag this week with the South Node coming with a square to Neptune by this full moon. Like this is where these things that we hold on to as beliefs and ideas that are, you know, kind of like, I was going to say like subjugated, but I would say that it's more like they're deeply interconnected to psyop energy that is connected to the media, Neptune. And that if you're really locked into that energy, that's not a frequency to be locked into. That is definitely one that is a frequency level that will get you not in a really positive against space, hold you against your own self and hold you against the soul level of who you are. And I think that this is kind of the deep question that it's hard for me to say these things now on these other platforms because they get, you know, they get taken in the wrong directions. They get taken in, you know, to banning people and so forth. But I think that one of the major questions to ask about everything going on right now, and I think that anybody that's going through the pain and the suffering of what we're seeing on the planet right now from this, you know what, is I think the number one question should be like, do you really want to be here? What frequency do you connect with? And, you know, like, because this is the question. It's been said on tons of articles all over the place over the last couple of weeks, especially the last week. If this is now, you know, the new energy and why it's spiking all over the world more, and then of course they bring up this thing with the UK, which we can get into, and that's the cover for why is it that we're told that we have to, you know what, put on this and wear it all today, and people are really not. I guess you could say if you just take last year or even take the beginning of this year, you take the first part of this energy, people have been following these rules. And if they really have been, why is it peaking when really it should be doing the opposite? And I think that has to do a lot about the frequencies. That the frequencies are raising, the frequencies are more abnormal now, and the frequency, you know, my ear rings a lot doing this work. It's been ringing a lot more lately ever since Jupiter and Saturn Aquarius. I would also say that being comfortable in frequency is something that is not easy for sensitive individuals out there. You know, I always laugh, and actually that video I showed you earlier with Sarah Delane, when she came here multiple times, but she would always walk actually in this room where I'm at right now. This is like where the main hub is for all the Wi-Fi that's around the whole entire studios, and also which runs all the servers and also all the major Ethernet that goes to the main studios where we do our lives. If you always notice, even right now, you notice my live is not going to glitch. I'm in full 1080, and there's no issues. It's not like this thing's glitching or da-da-da, or you're not going to see it come in and out with quality. It's because I have really fast broadband, like extremely fast. But I pay a fortune for it a month, like $500+ a month for it. But that's because I run a network and I like to deliver to everybody, and whether it's my YouTube or High Vibe, the ultimate. But, you know, she'd come in here and she could feel it right away. Like, this place is insane. I'm somebody who happens to, like, not really feel the frequencies as much as far as negatively wise. Like, I don't get weirded out. I'm more scared of heights than I am frequencies. But we need to take the whole idea of frequencies now as a big deal with Jupiter and Saturn and Aquarius that have met. And then this next 20 years with the square to Uranus is the fight for the people against frequencies. Whether that's going to be natural frequencies from nature, because it is Taurus, right? Like the sun and the whether it's the gamma rays or whether we want to get into solar flares or we want to get into that stuff. Or just our electromagnetic sphere around the Earth being weaker and receiving all this more energy. I mean, the northern lights have been coming lower and lower into, Midwest. You could see it in some states a couple weeks ago. That's not normal. Usually you used to have to go all the way to the top, almost to the North Pole with Santa to go check out the northern lights. All the way to frequencies that are made by humans. Also energetic frequencies that humans create themselves, and how the people that we choose in our life, right, if their frequency is not in alignment with us, it can make us feel not good, right? It's like there's nothing worse. I remember back in the old world, right, you'd go to a party and something, and then I don't know, you'd all take an Uber back, or this is back in the cab days probably more like, and then you're like, who's this person? Like, they're coming back with us, and we're like, I don't know about this person. It's not about not being a good human being. It's just kind of like, just the energy soul level wise, like they're a little over intoxicated and they're being weird, and they're hitting on your girlfriend, or they're hitting on that guy's girlfriend, or they're hitting on your girlfriend's boyfriend, or whatever that, right? There's that whole, like, is that person's frequency in alignment? It can ruin your energy really fast. Just somebody can just be really like, nah. And so I think that we need to realize that this is frequencies on all levels. When you're dealing with Saturn and you're dealing with Jupiter, you're dealing with the biggest two planets. And you're dealing with levels with Saturn and Jupiter expanding those levels in all dimensions in all different places, especially when it comes to frequency. And I think it's so important for you to pay attention to frequencies, right? What frequencies are you holding on to in yourself? What frequencies are you connecting with? Neptune is still square the nodes. Let's not forget that. Mercury's in Capricorn this week, and it is trine Uranus as well. So I think that we're getting a lot of exciting insight about our future this week, about what to build and grow. But let's not forget, with Neptune there squaring the nodes, are we building that future based off a narrative that the media is telling it to live, and is because then we're creating a future based off that. And it's hard to decipher what's real and what's not with Neptune and Pisces already and square the nodes. But with the North Node in Gemini, I think it's like, pay attention to the simple stuff. It's almost like you don't need to be a crazy scientist. You don't need to be a crazy professor at this moment. All you got to do is be a common sense person. That's what Gemini is. Gemini looks at people without common sense and goes, what the hell am I doing here, right? That's why there's so much fun. That's why I love Geminis. I love Sagittarius too. I'm a Leo. I like getting intellectual and getting deep and looking at the big universe and having people who know their shit and teach me something. But I love common sense people the most. I like street smarts better than I like book smarts. And that's because my North Node is in Gemini. And right now, common sense makes more sense than book smarts. Especially when Jupiter and Saturn come into Aquarius and they blow the ideas of that community of science out the window. It starts to just make no logical sense anymore. They try to tell you right now that Jupiter and Saturn being here in Aquarius, right, at this time, and there's other astrologers trying to tell you that that they're trying to is the revolution of Jupiter and Saturn. No, it's not. It's not that. I'm sorry to say that those two planets did not take that long to meet, especially just if you take the basics of Jupiter and Saturn of a 20-year cycle. This was 20 and a half years since it was May 2000 last time they met. But if you go even deeper into Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius, you're going to go hundreds of years. And especially, I'm just trying to say, like, with the actual conjunction, that, they did not take these, let's just say centuries to be simple with it. To me, at the first degree, right after Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn, right, they just didn't meet in this space for that. That's too small. That's too experimental. I mean, it's part of the times, right? There's going to be bad experiments with Saturn and Aquarius with Jupiter there. that's going to try and teach Saturn, like, you just can't solve a problem by just doing a crazy experiment. You need to make sure that you've talked to the people, that you have looked for your best interest for all the people, especially with that square to Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and it's in Taurus being like, is this good for the physical of the people? Is this truly good? I thought it was interesting that they put out just recently about that thing, that anybody over 75 should not take it. Yet we just saw the, supposedly, still yet to be reckoned with and truthful, president that's 78 years old take it. Was that really in there? And what's sad is to ask that question is looked at as like heresy now. Neptune's at the degrees of where the witch trials were. So I warned about this. I put out my video of Conscious Life Expo for free. I've been sitting on that video since I got it in March. And I wanted to wait throughout this year to make sure that I wasn't crazy and to make sure that everything I was saying, you have to remember that video was done on February. I think it was on the date? I forgot. It was middle February. So we were a month away from like the American lockdown. And we still had no idea that we would even go on a lockdown, right? But it was like all those predictions I made there were all based upon what I saw coming through the year. And all the predictions from 2019 that predicted what 2020 was, it was kind of crazy me sitting there after putting out that video in September and then sitting in February and it's all starting to happen and be sitting there in a room with 500 people and a bunch of astrologers and looking around and going, nobody wants to talk about this on the most intense fucking truth? All right, let me do it. I'm going to be that person. I don't care if I come across as like Tom Cruise is right now and how he is on movie sets. I don't care if I have to be that guy in the astrology community, right? Because, a lot of it's all fluff out there. A lot of, I hate to say it, I kind of backed out a little bit with Jupiter and Saturn opposing my sun. And like, let me just take a step back and see how all the other astrologers in the community are doing things. I'm not against them. But it's like, there's so much fluff, Jupiter and Saturn and like the fluffy shit. But not getting to the actual basis of what anything is. So it's kind of taking me a second to come back here to be like, okay, even though I do my dailies for high vibers and stuff. But as I'm doing this stuff, I'm like, are people not wanting to talk about mad experiments? Nobody wants to talk about, that this is about the people and the betterment of the people first. And the idea that, something, because I think Aquarius does have a valid point that the telescope is what found Uranus. And that's why it rules, science and kind of tools that we use to make the betterment of people. But with the square to Uranus and Taurus, this would be bad experiments. This would be not like telescopes. This would be, jamming your arm with something that was not really thought about a lot and is about to come into a fuck show here, just to be blunt, in January. Like, bad. And ironic that where the UK comes out with this whole idea of this, mutation? What is it? What have they been selling me since I was born in the 80s? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All these DC comic stories of mutants and how mutants are. And the mutation is the beginnings of what was the first country to get this thing there. And they're trying to say that they found stuff prior back. They've been trying to find it in every country and found maybe some, and who knows what we're being heard about. But what better way to start playing with that stuff, putting it in people, and then fucking start to tell people out there, oh, it's mutating. Oh, you mean you're mutating it within people? Like, how can you not use common sense with that? The week prior is exactly when they're putting it all over the world that they're the first country to do it. And then within the 10 days, you've got that popping up. That poor nurse, that America that we watched, nobody has heard from her except the hospital trying to say she's getting better, but she hasn't responded to anybody, and they've wiped that story away. And we don't know if she's still around. That one's a tearjerker to me. And, I get emails from people, and I got an email this week that blew my mind. And it was from a nurse, and it was actually from Friday of last week because it was for this Monday that they were requiring everybody at that hospital to go to they had to drive to a tent, get the you know what, and then there's another tent where you must chill out in your car for 30 minutes, or maybe it's 20 minutes to make sure nothing happens to you. And that's the stuff they're not putting out there. I have the emails from the hospital and what for them to do. When was the last time you knew that you would get anything like that, even when you were a kid and you got a shot, which is basically when we thought we were getting shots, we were getting those, right? But when we get one, it wasn't like the doctors put you in a separate area for 15, 20 minutes and been like, are you going to be okay? At least when we were kids, when we got all that stuff, guess what? They gave you a lollipop. Maybe that's why I'm hitting my drool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm used to getting the lollipop and to make me feel better. Now they don't give you anything. They're not giving you the lollipop. And they're like saying, don't talk to anybody, don't see anybody, and go back to your house and just sit there and don't make money or don't do shit and don't do anything and just sit there and fucking and wait for us to tell you the next move of where you're not going to make a move. Our next move is where you're going to be able to not make as more moves in your life. That's what all that Capricorn was, and the freedom of Jupiter and Saturn and Aquarius is going against the tyranny against the people in the square to Uranus and Taurus. And so some people, want to like come at me all the time because I'm wearing a bandana. It's to represent the rebel, the pirate. I told you all about the Capricorn energy and it being the pirate that knows its destiny. And, pirates left, energy that was trying to hold them back, to go to the open international waters of freedom. Reminds me of pirate radio that was on a boat outside the UK transmitting other things. What do you think's happening right now? With a bunch of these platforms that are having to do that. And it's hard to go build these platforms. I've been blessed. My biggest blessing that I looked up when I watched Jupiter and Saturn on Sunday night, because I didn't watch Monday night because I'm like, it's done. I'm an astrologer. It happened at 10 a.m. So I'm like, okay, that's done. So Sunday night. But the blessing that I looked deep into my heart was that this new Aquarian age is going to be the people having to go to new places. Although it's not like 400 years ago with the Mayflower, right? For religious tyranny. But it's on the web or it's on all these other places. And, and making sure that you're not getting psyoped from all these different places. And, and then the smoke screen cover is the fact check thing, which feels North Node Gemini, but it's not common sense. And it's also like you're seeing everything else and then you see the suppression. You can't suppress a Gemini. If you try and suppress a Gemini, they'll go crazy. I mean, let's be real. You try to put your mouth on a mouthpiece on a Gemini, they'll get out of the muzzle. They'll keep talking. You can't shut up a Gemini. So what makes you think you can shut up Mercury? You can shut up the truth by a fact check that we don't know who it is, and a little thing underneath the platform that says, yeah, don't listen to this. That's psyop. What do you think they did in the witch trials? Like, they burned people at the stake. Don't listen to them. What do you think they do all the time? They always mask people all the time. Put them up on, whether they're hanging, they give you they put blindfolds on you. Like, all this idea of covering a natural part of yourself. And I'm not saying I'm some anti this or anti that. I'm just trying to be somebody who's an astrologer who's trying to wake people the F up and start to look at common sense and use the planets to do it. And stop getting lost in the psyop that I have been telling you all was coming prior. I have the receipts. I have all the videos to prove it. I have this last decade that we were just in of every day of just being there. And out of those astrologers out there, was on American national television the most, and was trusted by them to give you the truth too, and was there every day. And I'm just trying to tell you, listen, I have the courage of a Leo to not be afraid to step into Aquarius, my opposite sign, and to look after the people and let people know that I have put everything that I have been lucky and blessed with to be given through this astrology career, to be put into a platform and to be put into a place where people can go and get the info where it can be done and said. Trust me, people told me, just why don't you just do YouTube and just shut that whole thing down a year ago. I was like, trust me, wait till you see what happens. Now do you see why I said that for so long? Or what's going to happen over these next couple months? One of the things in this new bill that's coming out right now about, right, the new relief bill is 10 years in prison for streaming illegally, even though they say it's not copyrighted. But how deep does that go? I've been trying to find all the literature to it, and there's going to be more expansion on it. What do you think they're trying to do to suppress truth? 10 years? 10 years? You know my life. When the live streaming came out, guess who was the first astrologer doing multiple camera live streams in 2016 on Facebook? I have the receipts. Who was the first astrologer in the world that went into VR and did a VR live horoscope in 2017 at a VR conference? I have been in the live streaming world for a long time and been on my own platform live streaming on an app that I own. So I am trying to tell you all that I know the back end of the literature of the tech. I also actually do this for a living every day, and I'm trying to show you all that you have to be very aware right now that when it comes to the control of frequency that's against the people, it is happening. And that this is where you have to start to break away from these places that we're addicted to getting the information from, because there's psyops happening around it. They're throwing videos of what you want you to hear everywhere else around the video that you want, to where you get out of the info and you're surrounded by psyop pawns that are not rooks, they're not even knights, they're nothing, they're pawns. And they're taking one story, and then that other person's taking the same story, and they're just spreading the same story. Where they say, somebody, a good example is like some leaker came out with this info. Why aren't they coming out and talking to the public? Why do we just have to hear that some leaker went somewhere? We don't know who the leaker is. We don't know if he's taking a leak or she's taking a leak. We don't know what the hell's going on. And that's just the truth, not story. And then every other news channel is just covering the same story and just saying, well, the leaker, not all of them talk to the leaker. So the light right now, believe it or not, is also funny, because when you come into Aquarius, everything flips. Because remember that Uranus flips, right? So like we can go, oh, hold on, let me change this to stars, but I also want to go to planets. Okay, here we go. Solar system, and then yes. There we go. So, remember that Uranus here likes to sit on another out. It likes to sit opposite how everybody else does, right? It doesn't like to sit like this, like we see a planet. It likes to sit like this, okay? And there's a lot of very interesting things that have been coming out. Of course, this isn't going to show everything, but when you look at that planet, that's how it looks. It doesn't look like this, right? Like how you see Saturn. It's upside down. And I want you all to pause on that because we were talking about leakers, and I need to leak. I'll be right back, so don't go nowhere. All right, I'm back. Maybe a couple too many Sprites on the Christmas party at High Vibe today. I was dealing with so much water. I got a new RV and clearing out the winterization because they winterize them, and I was drinking a lot of water all day. Anyway, I have a lot to talk about today. So, the upside down, the flip energy is what happens with the poles on Uranus, which maybe actually, if we were to take a second here, let me try and pull it up for you all here. This was actually a 2020 thing that was found. Oh, actually, that was 2017. I think that was the beginning of Saturn here. Okay, well, I guess it was 2017, man. Life goes fast. I guess I accept your data. Okay, so Uranus's crooked, messy magnetic field might open and shut daily. And then it was confirmed, I think, in 2020. And I was trying to find it, but, finding a lot of stuff lately is harder fast. So that's the unpredictability, but it's also the understanding. So if you were to, I guess this would be a good way to do it. So hold on a second here. So here we go. Okay, so, all right, so we'll use red. So imagine, so it is tilted, right? So electromagnetic energy goes like that, right? So, you could do it up and down like that, and then this one could be going this way. And so we see this that creates the poles, right? So what they're saying is this opens and shuts. So it's almost like if a pole shift were to happen, imagine these being the poles, and then they swap, right? Which looks very much like a binary star system on the swap energy. Anyway, long story short would be this is neurotic, so it's all over the place. Whereas on Earth, right? So we can go to Earth magnetic field. So, this is what it looks like from Earth, right? So it's upright like the other planets, and it's a lot more predictable, and it's a lot more stable. It is Earth stability, whereas air is the ruler of Uranus and is very unpredictable. So when you add that to the fact that, and let's take, I forgot to add all these. So, that's Fridays. Is this Thursdays? That's Wednesdays. Delete. Yeah, here's Thursday. Okay, so as we come into this week, I want you to think about this, because we're going to see Mercury here on Christmas Eve trine over to Uranus with the moon on Uranus with Black Moon Lilith, okay? So we have to remember that whenever you're dealing with Uranus, you got to think of that neurotic, kind of out of nowhere. It's unpredictable. It's not stable. But it also gives us crazy insights to look at things differently, just from the sheer fact of us taking, this field to the prior field, right? And knowing that it's up and down and it's all chaotic, right? It's like there is no stability. And the reason why I want to say this is because the fact that Jupiter and Saturn now are in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. So in astrology, that makes the dispositor the planet Uranus, right? So it's going to have a Uranian element in the sign that it's in, or the aspects it's making to the planets in the sign. Does that make sense? And especially since Saturn is at home in Aquarius, does it really make that powerful planet as powerful that the computer systems, and I love AstroGold, but this is going to be something that I think is going to happen in the future of astrology here, is when we go to look at that planet, so we go to look at Saturn, right? Yeah, it's a plus 10 because it's at its home, right? It's in its dignity. It's in its domicile, dominant position, domicile, however you want to look at it. Dominant. I like using, it's dignified. So it's in its dignified position. That's why it gets the plus, right? But one thing they don't add on this, I need to talk to Stephanie and ask her if she'll let me do a Leo King one. But Uranus, they don't show you any numbers on all astrology programs. But Uranus is in its fall. That worst placement is in Taurus. So having the fact that Saturn is at home, but it's in Aquarius' house with Uranus being that ruler, and Uranus happens to be in its fall position, and it's retrograde, and it's starting to square a negative aspect to it, that's not going to be as powerful as you would think it would be. And then you have Jupiter there, which overtakes Saturn now. So Saturn just had a kind of debilitating moment because Saturn was ruling the roost, right? Saturn had Jupiter under the control there, right? Like, so Saturn had Jupiter. Saturn had Pluto, of course. And Saturn also had itself there. And it had the south node with it in eclipses. It had Mars with the south node and with its exalted there, all in 2020. It had Mercury, which was exactly when Saturn and Pluto met on January 12th. So it just came off this super big high. Now a planet that's bigger has just overtaken it. Not only in the geo, like we're seeing with Earth-based chart, but it's been happening for over a month and a half in helio. And from the sun's point of view, it's like, oh, Jupiter's past Saturn. And now Saturn's come home. Jupiter's there with it, which is much more expansive. And Jupiter in Aquarius is much more expansive. It's not retracting at all. It doesn't follow the laws and orders. It follows ones that go beyond Saturn's reach. So, and that's why I kind of want to get a little technical with people here, and remind people of the astrology a little bit more, because if we were to get out of, can I just get back to my solar system, please? So, if we take. And you know what? Let me see if I can. Sizes large. It's already set to large. That's what's crazy. So we're gonna do this. I don't want to explore that. No. All right. So we got our solar system here, and if we take a look at it, right? So here's Saturn right here, right? So Saturn, from Earth's point of view, right? But you'll see Earth going to be probably, it's probably so small. But, let's say, because Earth's going to be like right here, let's say, okay? So, because we are looking, Earth's going to be right here. Okay? Let me erase that. I'm actually doing the shit in my head. And it just took me a sec. All right, so that's where Earth is, okay? So everything that's Saturn you can see from Earth is just a Saturn. You can't see, and I'll change it to a different color. We'll give it a blue, kind of like a more of Aquarian color. Everything from this point on, you need a telescope. You can't see with your eye as far as planets go, which is kind of crazy. We can see stars so far away, but you have to remember these are planets. They're not stars. They're not suns. They're not divine, pure life force energy. They're consciousness energies. They're reflective energies of light. So once you get into Uranus's world, and that's the dispositor, and you get into Aquarius, you are no longer, if you were to be, let's put ourselves in Saturn's shoes for 1 second, right? So let's be Saturn for a second. You only look, think of those the eyes of Saturn, and I'll give it its weird little creepy, like, kind of grin here. Like, right? It's so focused on its control of everything within its rings. Remember, it's got rings on it in the way that it forms itself with this kind of like philosophy of like, I have control, I am sharp, I've got my shit together, follow what I do, I'm the leader, I'm the ruler of the leadership. But the reason why Aquarius comes after Capricorn is because leadership can take us to wrong places. And with Pluto there, it's hidden leadership, right? And that's over. And now with Jupiter here, and we still got the South Node in Sag, so Jupiter's kind of in the same boat where the dispositor is not as positive because South Node in Sag's dispositor is Jupiter. And South Node in Sag is going to karmically bring up stuff, look more illusionary and real than it really is. It's going to feel more real than the North Node, which actually Mercury's the ruler. Mercury's closest to the sun. So Mercury's only look is at the sun, right? Although Mercury does, the only planet psychologically, if you were to think consciously of a planet, if you think about Mercury for a second, and we'll do this, it's going to make it easier to think about this. So if you take Mercury for a second, right? It looks at both sides because it's the first planet that goes, okay, on one side I got the sun, and the other side I got these other planets. It's the only planet that does that. That's why Mercury has to look at dualistic nature, and it is neutral, because it's the only planet that is in between planet and sun, neutral. Every other planet's between a planet. So this makes this whole thing very weird because Saturn's now been overtaken by the biggest planet, Jupiter, which isn't so much about rings, but about moons, emotions, adventures, experiences, storms. It's a very, very massively buoyant and heavy a gas planet, where Mercury's very light and fast. So, and taking information from two angles, right? So, once you come into Uranus's world, Uranus isn't looking here, since if we remember the picture, Uranus is, not looking like this with its rings, right? Uranus is turned upside down with its ring. So it's looking at things from a cocked angle and a different perspective. It's like a different view. So it's not looking at things like this. It's taking a look, and it's going around. It's like, oh wait, let me look at it. It's like, it's like a creep ball who's like at the prom. Reminds me of what was that movie? I was Animal House. When Joe Belushi. When Belushi is like looking under the stands at the girls' dresses, right? Like, for the cheerleaders, like, he's like, I'm not gonna do that. Jim Belushi, he's like, I'm gonna go underneath the stands and look from there, and nobody will see me. Nobody can see Uranus, And I'm going to get the angle of how I'm going to look at something, the way I want to look at it, that nobody else was thinking about, right? Because the girls weren't thinking about it. They weren't worried about it underneath them on the stands. They were looking out, like Saturn. Saturn only looks out at what it can see. Saturn doesn't even think about looking out at what it can't see. Saturn can be prepared for that, though, because Saturn has this karma, and knowing the idea of Saturn being with karma is because Saturn lays its own dirty, dark karma. That's what Kronos did. Kronos betrayed his father Uranus, took over control of the universe, had a son named Jupiter, Zeus, who fucking takes him over and restores balance in the universe again, and after his father gets banished. So the karma that's laid is because of Saturn. And the reason why Saturn is so depressed, one, he's depressed where he wants power because he wasn't the one born with it. So that's the real ego, is where your Saturn can be, believe it or not. Like the shadow ego and the karma you lay by it. But then on top of that, not only does he want that power, he actually does things. He plans and he plots. And so, and then of course with anything in life, with time, which Saturn rules, eventually the way that life works is the universe restores its balance. The universe finds its truth again, and it restores things the way that it should be, and restores and leaves you with that karmic of the depression of, did I just betray my whole family? Why do you think Capricorn's opposite of Cancer? A family. And this is a week with a full moon in Cancer. So just having the full moon in Cancer this week is going to bring up the mythology story of family in this whole story. For the first time in our lives, Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, with the dispositor being Uranus in square. Wow. It's pretty gnarly. But on top of that, in your own life, and what you call your home and your family, at a time where there's a sun in Capricorn, which rules the energy of Saturn, that's the rules that you put on yourself. That's like all these weird things, or the rules that we're seeing from governments, from states, from countries and stuff that are trying to take you away from that family. Ironically, it's coming after Christmas and into the new year. And I think that this full moon, because we had a full moon lunar eclipse 2 days before Saturn Pluto met with Mercury, was very powerful. We had 2 new moons in Cancer this year. One was a solar eclipse at 0 degree with comet Neowise that came at the same time. Comets are signs from God to focus on the central nucleus of the respect and the maturity, and more importantly, the good karma. I don't even want to call it karma, but the dharma that we must focus on is that of the wholesome feeling of where are our feelings at? Not brought to us by Capricornian, Saturnian, if you want to call it darker, taking that away. So anything trying to strip you away right now is not of the light. It's not of the wholesomeness of the comfort of, we all know you Cancers out there. Y'all love your blankets. Y'all love to take naps. Y'all love the nice bed. Y'all love to have family around. Y'all love to have all these great things, right? You like good food and a good show and a good movie. Y'all love to be in the car that makes you feel good. Y'all love to be passionate about things. Don't ever discredit Cancer now about being passionate. They're very passionate. They're very caretaking. But Cancer can get caught up into, that's where Saturn teaches Cancer, or Capricorn teaches Cancer, hey, maybe you don't need to take care of everything. You should make sure that you're, only efficiently taking, you don't want to be the nurse to everybody in your life, right? Taking on everybody's problems emotionally, and then you take that on emotionally and you don't feel good. Are we as a collective right now taking emotionally on this Saturnian plan that's over? Okay, they did it. Sure, they might, like any plan, it's going to be still fully enacted, but are we going to allow it to continue to go on? Or are we going to finally be Uranus and see things from a different angle and realize that maybe this whole idea of the world and the way that they're trying to make the world come back to the way it was by giving up so much of our life and giving up our souls and giving up our humanity and turning us into psyopt, like, it's so funny, psyopt, cyber kind of AI humans, genetically re-engineered, which is very Uranus, square Saturn, like bad experiments gone bad. The whole movie V is for Vendetta was based upon the military and the government injecting and trying to mess with people that went bad, and it happened to be that V in that movie, genetically engineered, survived and was able to do things that nobody can do, and he's the only one who has the power not only to go after the people that did it to him, but to help people get out of the tyranny, which, if you remind you, it says it's at 2020 at the beginning of that movie in Britain, and it straight up says that because of those Americans and their dirty plague and all this crazy stuff that caused us to be on such a lockdown. There was curfews in that movie, if you remember. There was the whole thing about plague. There was all these things, and then they had this centralized government where you had to listen to the chancellor speak. And then he only had his little boardroom with his, like, 6 henchmen, you know? And what do you think's trying to come at us right now? Right? How many people in the world are telling us what to do? And how many people are there that they're telling it to? These are questions that you have to ask yourself. And if you fall into the psyop of what the media says with Neptune square the nodes, I'm just sorry to tell you that you're not asking the right questions. You're not looking at things. And I'm just saying that in the most positive way I can, and trying to remind you that, you know, Jesus, if we're going to talk about Christmas, Jesus was a heretic. Jesus was killed for his teachings, for his talks, for his truth of being a better human being, about loving one another. We're at a time where if you're trying to not ask for a handout, right? And this is Aquarius. It wants to figure out things. It wants to help. But Aquarius doesn't have enough to go around for everybody. If everybody asks for more and more and more and more, it has just enough help. And it's realizing that when you're in a place in Aquarius where you need help, you don't want to ask for help again, right? There's nothing worse than when we're, you know, going through growing pains in our life and shit, and we have to ask for help, right? It's just not a easy trait for anybody in life. We all have gone through it. We've all asked our friend, hey, can you help me? I need help. I need to move. I need $5. You got it? We've all had to ask the weirdest situation. It's like we've all been in a weird situation that we've had to ask for help. And it's in that lesson of help that we learn it once, and Aquarius goes, don't do it again. I'm not going to come around with the water. I'm not going to water bury you and bring you more water and just constantly get you used to just always having water. You'll never move forward in your life. Because there is a papa, daddy kind of energy with Uranus. But it's like the Uranus that's like, you get a hall pass and a lesson of how to do it without, you know, complete catastrophe like Saturn can do. Like Saturn's the strict one that will lock you up. Uranus will just disrupt your life because you haven't learned and you want to keep begging for help. But how funny that we're in a time, just like Jesus, and we're going to talk about Christmas, right? A man who speaks about love, speaks about light, being with others, taking care of neighbors, being with, you know, and connected to the holies of holy, to the true source, just to God itself, to connect to God, to connect to, you know, the benefic energies of the world, which all right now in our lives, we are down to what's the benefic lives in our world, which is the relationships and the people that we love and care about. Very Aquarian. Like it kind of gnawed us down this year to just being that. Or because Aquarius also has to rule with like our futures and what we're going to do about that. Like we live in a world where, you know, there's a lot of like rhetoric going around like, well, we should live in a world where you don't have to work. Well, I'm here to tell you that the number one cause of people to have heart disease, heart strokes, overweight, all these things come from people when they go into retirement. Why do you think that the cruise ships were the first things that got hit at this beginning of 2020 with this weird situation we're going through? Do you think that Spirit was trying to send a message like maybe life isn't about working your butt off as something that you don't like to do and then just to go be on cruises all the time? Or if you notice, and I'm going to just call out people that are in the spiritual community at festivals, Burning Man, not every single person I'm saying, but I'm just saying that you see this as a common denominator, is they're all floating around. They don't have a purpose. Their purpose is to go to the festival or to go to Burning Man, and it's a week long, and then it's over, and then their purpose is to float around until they can find the next thing. Aquarius and Capricorn don't really do well with that. They both want to go forward, just in different ways. They come from the same planet. So Jesus gets killed, and ironically, the Christian religion nowadays celebrates the birth of Jesus as the physical baby on December 25th, the birth. Right now, we are in the 3 days of darkness after the death on the cross as Jesus, which then becomes Christ on the 25th. So it's the birth of Christ, not the birth of Jesus. And this is paganism at its finest for the longest period of time. Y'all know, you've heard the stories and so forth. But I'm just trying to say, though, that that's the real. And then the Passover, right? When the sun at Easter on the first new moon in Aries, right? The ram's horn. And when you step into that is when there's that Passover of the sun returning, which is Aries. The three wise men and the birth of the physical Jesus, is that really connected to the celebration of Christmas? If it's Christ, not Jesus, it should be Jesusmas, if it is. The reason why there really is no true holiday for the real birth of a physical baby Jesus is because of the fact that we don't know when that would have been. And if anything, I would say that the birth of baby Jesus would be in the harvest season. That's God's harvest. And it would be in Virgo. And with the energy of the Virgin, who has Jesus as the physical baby, which is where Regulus is now. And that's where you need to really start to process in life that this is the birth of Christ-like energy. Whatever religion you're in or anything, right? Okay, it's the birth of the higher form of consciousness of doing, not only just like by living in your truth and not being afraid, but that you have a role to play that is higher, that is not just to come down here, eat, sleep, and even, let's say, so it gets back to the notion of, okay, you're just supposed to come down here on this planet and not work and chill out and veg your whole life. Maybe for some people, but that's not destiny. That's like, we all have a purpose here, and obviously this purpose has a lot more to do than just veg around. And I think a lot of it, if we notice just in 2020 alone, if you noticed, vegging around is not really fun. Some people might love it, but you also feel disconnected. It creates more mental health issues. It creates a lot of things. And that's the reason why Uranus goes crazy. And we're going to see more mental health issues come up for those that keep following the narrative that is being told and are blindly going into it because they have blindly been lost into this story. And also don't follow what's happening. I mean, this is a leap year this year, right? 2020. So already we're off on the calendar system. Already we had a February 29th, which already throws everybody's birthdays off. So your solar returns are all different than usual. If you look at the date, and and every solar return, except for once in a while, you'll get an actual like close chart looking like yours with the sun at least in the same house with like the same rising, and those are special years because that's back with you in alignment with the actual, alignment of who you are. But that's going into solar return charts extremely. But there is no the solar return chart of Christmas is the idea of the sun itself after the 21st during the solstice, and it's 3 days of moving in the same direction where it starts to pop up and bring more light. And it's because this comes from narratives that were from the northern hemisphere. Australians see that. on their June 21st, which was a solstice, but it was on June 20th, which was even crazier, right? Because we're back because of the leap year. We're all messed up on the days this year. But still, and there was a comet that came through with that one. And that's why do you think Cancer rules the top? Like, why do you think Cancer is the summer, right? It's because all the heat of the spring and bringing up all the new flowers and stuff comes up, and then that's when you start to see all the water, right, evaporate and so forth, and you start to see the crab that walks 3 days across, because the sun comes up like this, and then it's June 21st, and then it crab walks and then starts coming down, right? So when we're in Capricorn, it's Sag, which shoots its archer, right? Like, basically, in a way, yeah, sure, it's aimed up at a certain position, because if you follow the zodiac and you watch from Libra, the balance, that's exactly on the ecliptic of well, let's call it the equator of our solar system from the sun. And if you follow and you look, you watch Libra, and then you watch Scorpio go way down, right? And then you see Sag come way down, and then come kind of up, and it's Capricorn that the goat climbs the hill, but it takes 3 days for the Capricorn goat to kind of get its footing and get going, and then you start to see the sun come up, right? So that's here's the fall, and then boom, we hit winter, and then we come up. So we're in those 3 days right now that I'm doing this video. And it's weird because with Jupiter and Saturn, and they're calling this a Christmas star, it does feel like we're in the cave. About life, about where it's going, and that's what Jesus would have gone through. Dead, though. Right? As the soul is being transformed and going through into its Christ-like rising, right? Christ rising. Right? That's the birth of Christ, which goes with Christmas, not Jesus. Christ comes from being christened from the Christ-like energy after death. Why do we call after death on our calendar? I've done this work for so long. That's why I did Age of Deception, because people don't even see the time system's deceptive qualities in the holidays and the paganistic holidays and the actual astrology and the stuff that's basic to our understanding and how to do a horoscope to understand where the future is going to go. It's all right up there, but you got to know all the stuff. And if you really think that the future is based off what the television is going to tell you, I'm sorry to say that's Neptunian. Sure, you can get insights, or that's why even with channelers, or that's even if people get too much into that and they don't have a basis, you can get lost. If you're just basing your whole life off what a channeler told you, only a channeler, they don't use anything else, they might get some stuff right, but they're going to miss a lot of the story. This is what builds the story. This is what tells you when it's going to happen too, and predict the time periods and the dates and all that. So I just think it's important for people to remember that during this time, that we're all in this cave, Jupiter and Saturn and Aquarius. We're all getting ready for the square to Uranus, which is about to pop the lid off everything. So let's go into the charts of how we're going to show you what's going on. So this is, of course, what I showed you. Mercury is going to be trining over to Uranus this week right away with the moon, and the moon's exalted in Taurus. So this is us really starting to go, well, what do I really am excited for in my future, and what do I want? And it's time to make some choices. And I feel like this is a week about choices, and cutting away the things that are not valuable, Taurus, okay, not going to give you all the things that you want in your life. And B, it's important to strategize and make choices, but it's important to narrow the field down in life. Because with Jupiter and Aquarius, there's already enough out there to go look at, right? We talked about it, aliens to frequencies, there's a lot going on. But if we start to narrow the field about stuff that really makes us feel better in life, and we don't get lost with, the Sun-Mercury midpoint squaring Chiron here, on your ego's identity, just Well, especially if you're looking at the world, I'm just going to say it's like, gee, like if you're basing life off the world and where the world's going too much, instead of the Gemini environment of things that you can have right now in your life to make you feel good. And there is a little bit of that rebel that Jesus had. Let's not forget, Jesus was a pirate. Against the Romans, by the way, right? Against Spartans. Like, a very structured, the whole way that the Roman Empire fell after that, hundreds of years after, was especially for the fact that the roads in which the Roman troops used to walk down and take horses back, little by little, Christians used to hand, hey, why don't you look at this? Stuff about the story of Jesus and stuff, and wake the army up. And eventually, it gets up to Constantine in 325, and the next thing you know, Constantine has a dream of Jesus and, changes the whole entire country to go to Christianity and starts to get the pagans together to go, okay, let's make a religion because I don't want to just like get rid of my mom's, beliefs, and and I'm having this new vision and belief, but like, let's figure this religion thing out. And that's why you have all these pagan holidays. That's why you have paganism and Christianity as one. That's why you have the traditions of astrology embedded within life everywhere that will never go away, because every time in every cycle, whether you want to even go prior to Jesus and Egypt and the move into Rome, right? You're going to get astrology. You're going to get Hermeticism. You're going to get Hermetica. I mean, you're going to get it everywhere. So even in this one, right? When we're changing this new religion into science, at one point over the next 100 and, so years until we really come in the age of Aquarius fully, from an actual scientific standpoint, you're going to notice that science is going to fuck up so much with experiments that maybe they should follow the divine. And that's what I don't want people to fall into the trap for this week and the weeks coming up, especially into 2021, is I don't want people to fall into being the experiment in a time that shows that the reason why experiments are going to go down bad is to get it back to the divine. The experiment of killing Jesus didn't work out for the Romans. Do you really think that the experiment of jamming something into your arm right now that's going to get rid of something is going to fucking save you? And all of us as a collective? And, backing that and questioning that, what's the difference? Questioning it is before, being somebody who's like being told, like, I go into the history of the last times that we saw Mars in retrograde square Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and the closest I could come to of this much energy, and it still wasn't it fully, was Paul the Apostle. So you're at 4 AD, 5 AD, 6 AD. You get Paul the Apostle, who is working for the Spartan and the Romans and is like basically ratting out and trying to get all the disciples and get them all rounded up and killed, and has his wake up, and he ends up changing teams, and then he ends up writing the Acts, which are in the Bible. And I think we're going to see, and I'm hoping that we're going to see a lot of people on the planet during this time. I would hope now, but it's always going to be last minute, right? That people don't realize when they're sheep and when they get lost into this, and that they don't question and they just back blindlessly things like, I'm going to go kill these people that have a belief in something that maybe I've never looked at, or maybe or go after, or, subjugate, or, shame. It's not going to go well. Like, the news over the last couple of days, it just keeps showing like this new app. And once you get your, in the arm, guess what? You'll be able to get into it. And it's like, it shows the host. And, I don't even want to put up the video, right? Because it's not my content. And they're going to put you in jail for 10 years if I showed that content. That's what I'm trying to say is in the bill. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the blessings that Trump vetoed it. And I know that might offend people who need help now and all that stuff. I know that the universe has ways for you to find things, and things are going to go better than you probably thought from whatever Congress has to redo, or if they're going to try and push that one through. Like, there is so many things within this thing and you deserve more money anyway. Like, so I'm just trying to say, like, and where they're putting the money is insane. But what I'm trying to say here is, like, you got news anchors showing this app that's not even built yet fully with your picture on it and showing it as green. Like, you go to a stadium and you got your you know what, and you tested negative for you know what, and you get in, and then they show you how fast you'll get to your seat. Like, it's like normal life, and that you won't be around anybody that has it. Talk about segregation. Talk about segregation now based upon health. I'm glad that the race issues got really forced upon the country and the world to be forced to look at, because it needed to. There were things that needed to be addressed with race. But that has now transformed. And the new thing is going to be whether or not you follow something that's trying to take over your own body and your own choices being yourself, and looked at as like they did in the 1300s during the Black Plague. This is why I brought it up for years. 3 years straight I've been bringing this shit up to prepare for. Lepers. Which, believe it or not, the weirdest part of it is I feel bad for lepers, because it's like, you know, it's not like they look great, right? They don't look that good, you know? There's like definitely a lot of very Chiron energy. They get laughed at. They almost are not even laughed at. They're scared of lepers. Leprosy, right? But the part that gets me the most here is that we're all human, and it's not like anybody who chooses not to follow this narrative and not do these things, that is an experiment that's going to go bad. Okay? Especially because it's very deeply connected with, because this is Saturn and Uranus in square. And I just want to remind people that with Saturn and Uranus in square, okay, that, so you have Saturn and it's starting to square Uranus here, right? With the moon and Black Moon Lilith. When was Saturn and Uranus conjunct? Does anybody remember? Some people know because it was in their charts. It was in the same year that we had the Mars Retrograde in Aries in 88. We had Saturn and Uranus at the 28th degree of freaking Sag. 87, 88, 89. Saturn and Uranus conjunct. Then we saw Saturn and Uranus coming to Capricorn. So, you know, in 89, right? So, you know, we are at that square point, but we are at now, you know, the 3/4 part of the square, since Saturn is definitely the one that is heading towards Uranus because it's faster. But it was flipped too. What was also interesting is there was a Saturn-Uranus square when Uranus was in Aquarius and squaring Saturn during the last Jupiter-Saturn in 99-2000. But that was the that was the first quarter square. So you have the internet boom in between those two periods. You have the internet boom and the conjunction in computers and tech, GPS, but it doesn't get brought out to the public 12 years later, right? Until 2000. When literally people were allowed to have GPS. That was a government thing. That was a military thing. I don't know if y'all remember that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you thought GPS was freely available the second it came out to people. What else is out there that we don't have access to, that we're not able to use technology yet? There's technology being used that we're not allowed to use. That is in history, and it was on the last Jupiter-Saturn where it finally got available. But that was in Taurus to monetize it. This is in Aquarius. And Uranus and Taurus is squaring it. So it's like there's people out there who definitely have stuff that also at the same time don't want to monetize it and don't want the people to have it. And want to have like control that way. So like the supercomputer, the quad supercomputer, right? Like you don't have access on it. You can't go use a supercomputer right now and plug in data you want. Unless you work for Google. So, but this is going to be a bad experiment because when you get Saturn square Uranus, whatever structure that you think, especially or plan, right, it's going to come into fucking craziness and unpredictability. And when it's Uranus that rules science and Aquarius that rules science, and science is not the full ruler. It's people first. It's society first. So you're seeing, if you try to put any experiment over people, will always fail. You have to put people, and there's no experiment greater than the souls of humanity and the collective consciousness living on an earth. That's an experiment by a higher force. That's the only one allowed to do an experiment like that. But when men try to take it into their own hands, always goes wrong. Right? Like there's always going to be repercussions, because if it was truly an experiment gone right, that means there would be no loss. Take the atomic bomb. You think that was an experiment gone good? I know that there's people that could justify it of using it against Japan, but look what it brought. It brought up where we live in a world with nuclear warheads everywhere, nuclear power spilling everywhere, and you know, the fear of a world being destroyed by itself, by people, by men. And to think when they started putting hydrogen, when they went from atom bombs to hydrogen bombs out there in the middle of the fucking oceans and shit, you think that went good? That created more weird energies with people and like, you know, other countries, and that made Russia and America go to a Cold War. I'm just spending the extra time tonight. I have the time. I just am like trying to throw out the message for Christmas for you all, and like wake up. Show this to your families, your friends that are still lost in the Neptunian bubble here. I mean, I can't stress here. I'm going to clear this. I can't make this up. And you know, this is science, right? From Earth's point of view, it doesn't matter if you're using sidereal, if you're using, tropical here. But you know, I don't care. That's Rahu. That's North Node. That's South Node. That's K2. Those are knots in space. Those are nodes that we use and NASA uses to understand where eclipses are going to be and to predict them. And when you have Neptune, which is exactly in square to them and making a 90-degree angle, you're not going to be in a world that makes sense when people are blindly not questioning with the North Node in Gemini. Right? Because what happened on the eclipse cycle, which I brought up on Deep Astrology a couple weeks ago, that there were in this Saros 142 cycle, that was the eclipse of December 4th of 2002, which brought on the Iraq War and so forth after 9/11, which was connected in the same Saros cycle in Cancer in June of 2001, right? So then you mix this up into it. We blindly bought into going into Iraq, right? Same thing in the UK. They did the same thing. Instead of questioning if we should, it was Ron Paul who was questioning that stuff very intensely. Let's not forget that the guy who says he's going to be the president next, voted to go into that war. So, without questioning. You got to use astrology, you got to use history. And I know that some people get triggered. They get triggered by the truth. Good. That's what the universe is wanting, is people to question. I'm not giving you it's an end-all, be-all, but I'm a questioner. I'm an astrologer, though. So I'm very mercurial. And I'm a hermetic astrologer. So I'm very about the hermetics of how astrology works. And astrology is hermetic. It's a mental thing. It's not an emotional thing. Because if you get lost in the emotions over, stuff, you can't ask the right questions. And this Neptune sensitivity and psyop energy is very extreme. Like the Confederates used it extremely well in order for them to secede from the Union, and were able to get the whole South to secede. And say it's okay for slavery. And it was justified. When you look at the map of where we're at right now with Neptune and Pisces, but the last time around, because Neptune takes 165 years, right? So you could do Here we go. This is from my What's Next 2020 that I did in April. So this is the political map when Neptune finished Pisces, went into Aries. But you have to remember that the propaganda going into the last decan of Pisces, which we're in, coming up here in 2021, was the propaganda to create this split. And it's the numbers that flip me out the most. So, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's these are the numbers of slaveholders. So, let's just get some facts clear here. Okay? The numbers of holders of one slave was 68,000. Remember that of the 6 million, and let's say 6.2 million people that lived in the South, only 347,000 of them owned slaves. Right? So it's not like everybody in the South owned slaves. They had to convince way more of the population, right? A lot more, because only these 300,000 people owned slaves. The rest didn't. And out of that, what's crazy is when you start to look, 60,000 had one. People from 1 to 6 had pretty much almost the whole thing is right there. Which I had to kind of back it out. I wish. Let me see if I can get a clear look on this. Oh, that was not where I wanted to go. Yeah, it was this, and then it was. No, that's not that clear. I guess I have the clearest one for the moment. Or maybe this one. Oh, here we go. But it's about 100,000. Anyway, I did this on my What's Next. But basically, if you notice, when it comes to slave owners that basically had hundreds or more, it was down to about 2,000 out of the 320,000, right? So, you literally have a small group of people who have hundreds of slaves, 500, 1,000, very small number, right? That have to convince all the people that slavery is good, and they don't even have slaves. 6.2 million people lived in the South. 300,000 had slaves. The ones that had all the big ranches with all the slaves, those are the biggest degenerates in the whole fucking world. Anybody who had a slave is. But I'm just trying to tell you, like, very small number and a very small number that out of the big ones that had too much to lose, right? I mean, I could see how the Confederates, had the people who had one or two who were like, oh, I gotta, like, find help somewhere else. Like, yeah, you do. It's called fucking humanity. Like, you just can't fucking slave somebody to do your shit for you. But that's what we were dealing with as a nation. And you have to remember that this Neptune shit is a very small group of people is trying to convince the split of America right now to get rid of freedom, Aquarius, and to go against your fellow brothers and sisters and look at them as lepers for questioning, for using common sense, and for trying to go off what it says to do in the Constitution that's allowed, freedom of speech, to live your life, to practice your own religion, to continue your pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And then you have the guy who's running this roust, who's really not even running it, but he is at the point where they're trying to say it, telling you that you're going to go into a dark winter when he's supposed to be the president of a fucking country that says to follow your life for the pursuit of happiness, liberty. And to secede from that document by using a new religion of science that goes over those human things and to make us all slaves. Because that's the one thing that you need to look at right now is Uranus and Taurus is trying to market and bank off you as the collective, like they did in World War II the last time Uranus was in Taurus, right? Okay, all the women are going to go make bullets and all this, and all the men are going to go out here, and we're going to draft them. People are being drafted right now into slavery and signing up for it. Signing straight up for it. Totally, watching the news and just straight up, like, not using astrology, say they're into astrology, say they're spiritual, but going against their spiritual brothers and sisters that are questioning it. And I thought we were all on the same team here of being a soul that is connected to the divine and not getting lost into this whole, like, the divine thing to do is to follow what these things say that contradicts everything. Everything they have told you has not come true this whole year. So, I'm just trying to tell you, this week is about the full moon coming in Cancer, and it's about this Mars. I'm about to go into it, but I had to set up this Saturn-Uranus square and with Jupiter because of the fact that the Sun is going to look at Uranus. Mercury's going to look at Uranus. Here's the Chiron square. Then we're at that weird void in between December 21st and 25th, which is being like in the cave and having to see if you're going to go from the divine and you're going to be confident enough to know the godlike energy and trust that over this weird science fucking experiment shit. Not going to work. One of the things that I think is the most fucked up about this whole thing, because I'm not trying to say that this thing isn't real out there, because it is. But why is it affecting people that come from Latin nations and African Americans the most? Why is it targeting them the most? And this was supposed to be the people that we're looking out for the most, yet why is it attacking them the most? Nobody has the balls to say that on fucking TV enough. It's like disproportionate at this point. And the major one is overweight. If you're overweight and you fall in those two categories, it's like that's what's hitting those people the most, which as a collective, we need to all figure out what the fuck's going on here. Because if this thing is so based upon the science experiment that we're all the same, which is what Aquarius is, the bad experiment is that all humans are the same, right? Like we all don't respond to the same lotion the same way. We all don't respond to the, hair products the same way. We all don't respond to food the same way. We all don't respond to technology the same way. We all don't respond to clothes the same way. I could put this jacket on another dude and he might look like a fucking creep. Although maybe you might think I'm a creep and he might look nice, right? This world is not based upon that every human is the same. But it is based upon the equality that we all deserve the same equality of outcomes in our life, to have the freedom and to, more importantly, be allowed to be the expression of what God divinely gave our own karmic stories for some reason. And that we're all equal, that we were all given this gift that's unique to us. But to have the opportunity for us to express it and to be it. And if there is a problem, to involve the whole community, to involve all people to figure it out. Opposed to, no, these people are going to figure it out and that's it, and everybody else is not allowed to. That's not fucking Aquarius, and if you're fucking buying that story and you think that story's going to work, that's just no common sense at all. Zero. Especially an experiment, like, okay, let's go give this thing to all the frontline people who are essential. And what happens if it does go bad? What happens to all those frontliners? Now you're gonna have to draft a bunch of people to go become nurses, become doctors, because there's already plenty of cases right now that are starting to outdo the cases that we see of people who are getting this, and hospitals having to say no more. Like, we need these people to work. They're not responding well to it. The writing is on the wall. And the slavery is changed to leprosy, or if you're going to, what, because you want to go to a concert? Because you want to go fly? You want to go to that country? I already told you, Jupiter and Pluto and Capricorn for the next 13 years. That's what that transit did 3 times. Okay, you got Jupiter, Pluto 2007. Okay, you got to go travel and you got to go do the whole Bali thing. You got to go to every country and you got to do the Instagram world. You got to do this, you got to do that. You got to do whatever the fuck you wanted. It's Capricorn now and they're trying to fucking show that. But I'm saying, do you have to go through that way? Or can you create your own world that the universe for some reason doesn't want us kind of living that lavish Sag world? It's a South Node in Sag. We can have the lavishness of the experience of life, but it's through the Gemini world. It's through common sense stuff. It's through truth. It's through speaking. It's through communication. It's by being in environments and cities and communities in our life that we're all in the same frequency and vibration. And if everybody's in that, it's much better. We feel divided, but we're being divided. You know? And it's all from the TV. And you will never see a revolution on television unless it's a revolution they want you to be a part of. And there's an agenda behind them all. Like, just take 2020, like, take 2020 for example, with the CV. Yes, it informed us. Yes, we all have to figure out. But when you get to the bottom of it, it's not being figured out the way that's helping everybody in the end of the day. The evidence, look at the facts, not working. Everybody's following the rules. Everybody's doing it, and now it's getting out of hand? Huh. Okay. But there was an agenda behind following that. And Black Lives Matter, important matter. But there was an agenda behind that. So Spirit wanted us to pay attention to it, but it was Act Blue behind that. And it was about funding people in power and using the people use their stimulus money to fund that and to go fund an idea that they didn't even know about and didn't even give money to blacks that need it the most. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's the facts. That's the straight facts. And then they try and say, no, they just use the same Act Blue organization to take the payments. It's said underneath there, and there's plenty of videos still around, even though they're trying to take them all down. That was like, if you're donating through here, we can do what we want with this money, and it goes to Joe Biden. Da, 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 da. I mean, like, come on. If everybody is not gonna still believe that one, and that money should have gone to the black community, is ridiculous. I hate to say it, but it's truth. Now it's flipped. Now red, which represented the Union, is in the South, and blue, which represents the Confederacy, is in the North. Look at California. Red. No, now it's blue. Have you thought about that switch? So, Uranus is about to flip everything. And especially this week. I'm going to finish this astrology now, but I had to get all that out and show you. This is what I talk about. You know what? I had to say that stuff on this, show you where I go on High Vibe and what I say every day and why I'm playing kindergarten now on Instagram and on Facebook. I have to. And literally somebody wrote me today because all I did was show me blowing a whistle and putting up some Snapchat stuff and just having fun, because that's all they want you to do on there. It's just fucking like, they don't want it. They don't. That's not, those platforms are not for truth no more. They don't want that. And then there's bills out there saying if you're live streaming any copyrighted content, you're gonna go to jail for 10 years, and hiding that as, oh, we're gonna give you $600 to make you feel better. That's just one of the many crazy things of that thing. Signing your life away for $600. But they've got you to that point. And you have to see that the people that put you to that point purposely put you there on purpose. To have you begging for it, to take it, and, okay, I don't care. That doesn't affect me. I just need this money now. But are the ones that held you to the place to where you don't have access to money, held you to the place to where you're not allowed to, and gave you the subconscious rule set that you have to follow it, or you're being a bad human being and you're a leper because you're spreading leprosy. I don't see leprosy on people, and for some reason this thing's affecting elderly, overweight, diabetics, and people with secondary health conditions and third health, conditions. That's the facts. I went to school with deaf kids. And so we had interpreters in my classes from first grade to about to eighth grade. And so for me, it was normal. But when other kids from other schools came, or my friends, they would laugh at them or do whatever. And I saw the, very Chiron-ish energy of being deaf by being in class with them and learning to do sign language. I already know all my, I know all the stuff, and I had to do it. And then I would have to talk with them in class. And I love deaf people because they're some of the most sweetest people on the planet that I've ever met in my life. Because maybe the fact that they can't hear, their four other senses are so, they get more energy in those four other senses. But at my school, it wasn't like they segregated those people. It wasn't like they just threw them in their own class by themselves. The idea at my school when I was a kid, which became a blue ribbon school because of stuff like this, is why don't you throw them in there with kids who aren't deaf and just throw an interpreter there and let the kids who aren't deaf learn sign language and watch it and see what they go through and make them feel like they're part of the class and make them feel like they're part of school. And it changed both of our lives. But we're in a world right now of the segregation, and with Saturn squaring Uranus here about the collective, is like, let's put a halt to all of society for a very small portion of people. We have to still care for those people, but obviously what's working and locking the whole world down and taking away the freedom of everybody is not working. I mean, I thought about this, I'm just like throwing it out there. It's very common sense to me. I mean, and I think it's been thrown out there a bunch. If you fall into any of these categories in which this shit's going down, like, why don't we spend the stimulus money to let those people, you know, be protected and safe and provide everything they need until we figure this whole thing out, what the hell's going on? And let everybody else who's not part of it live their lives, because it's a very small proportion compared to a large proportion. And Aquarius is another intellectual sign. It doesn't get emotional. So this is where I'm going to have conversations with you all that are not emotional. On a full moon in Cancer, though, it's going to get emotional. Peek it out here. Second full moon of the year in Cancer. So I'm just trying to tell you, like, don't get emotional about these talks, because it's like, yes, it affects people out there. But let's be real. The proportion of the society and the people that are at large that are getting it is nowhere near. There's 7 billion people on the planet. Let's not forget about that one. So, if you're the one losing yourself this week in this Capricorn, and you're coming into this Capricorn transit, and you're like, I am all in for following what this structures say, well, now Saturn is in Aquarius, and the dispositor of Aquarius is Uranus and Taurus, that it's all upside down and flipped and doesn't make sense, and it is devaluing humanity and throwing humanity into that we are, unless my phone has a QR code that says I got something, right? That, okay, once that, I have that, I'm worth something? And I'm not a leper? Even though it could turn me into something worse? We don't know. And I don't get my freedom? Because the only freedom I'm going to get is probably to go to the stadium with other people who have this? Or go to the store or the restaurant that other people that have this? That's it? Oh, by the way, I still got to wear the mask and do all this crazy shit. Wow. Wow, that sounds like that's a great fix and great solution. While experimenting. And experimenting on things and making the experiment on the people is only something that God can do, not something that man can do on itself. That's not the job of Aquarius, right? The job of Aquarius is to help. And it's not help by segregation. It's help by pouring water into somebody else's cup. But when you tell everybody that they're not essential and they can't help, that's just the soul that's like, I got everything. Like, do you think I can run a full spiritual network by myself? I tried it many years. Did not end up well in my life. Probably one of the reasons why I went through a divorce too. And I still am learning the lesson of like that I can't do it all on my own. You know? And especially Jupiter, Saturn opposed to Leo, like me at 0 degree Leo. Yeah, I can't do it all alone. So the idea that, you know, the whole world's going to be saved by a certain amount of people and everybody else is like just left out to dry and wait is ridiculous. It's literally ridiculous. And Capricorn is like, who's the sheep and who's not the sheep? That's what Capricorn wants to know. Who's willing to be the slave? The new slave. And that word is something that definitely triggers people because of what we've gone through this year. But it is a word that you need to pay attention to because it was brought up a lot. And it was brought up a lot while you were enduring slavery in yourself. That's the way that you psyop somebody to get off of the idea that they're being enslaved, is to bring up slavery at a different time and how people are being enslaved in other ways, while the biggest slavery operation has been going on of all time. So, as we get to Friday, we see Jupiter, of course, now it's at 1, but we see Saturn about to come to 1 degrees too. And remember, it's 1 degrees, and I think it was like 52 minutes is where Saturn went retrograde. So we're not out of shadow with Saturn yet. So we haven't seen the craziness of Saturn in Aquarius, which it is going to be coming here in these next couple weeks. Which if you look at the dates and when this is coming, it's definitely around this you-know-what, because you can't even say that anymore on this platform. Talk about the competition we just had between two people. And the sun on Christmas is squaring Chiron exactly. So it's a weird Christmas. It feels off. It feels weird. And it's because either A, you were the sheep and you follow the weird thing that the world's telling you to hold on to that will not, like some sort of greater sacrifice. When you're sacrificing something greater, your destiny, your ability to be worthy and essential in this world, that you're only essential and you're already breaking the laws by basically, if you even go see your family on Christmas, is fucking insanity of the, I'm doing something for the greater potential, but I'm getting rid of my own life. Did you come down here this life just to fucking have to shut it all fucking down? Like, that's not how God works. Never in life has that happened. You know, in 1917, when World War I was peaking out, and there was the Spanish flu, and in 1918, there was 7 million people in World War I in trenches, coughing on each other, shitting in the same place, no showers, nothing. There was no masks on in there, and they were fucking just worried about if they were gonna fucking make the next, couple minutes ahead of life by trying to advance just one foot. That was allowed to still go on. Ironically, too, the second wave of that came after they already were telling people to wear the masks and all that shit. Why is it that history has to repeat itself again? So this is going to be a weird Christmas, but it's only one when you realize you're holding on to feeling like you're doing something of greater sacrifice when really you're sacrificing yourself. And you are sacrificing yourself to follow in line with something that is literally out of control in common sense, that is not holding the value. And this moon in Taurus is going to remind you that value. But now we're going to start seeing, as the moon in Taurus, and we got Jupiter and Saturn in fixed, there's all these big harsh squares. They're going to keep coming, and especially once we see the sun come into Leo here in 2021 and opposite this form, and every time the moon's going to come in a fixed sign square, every time it comes in a Scorpio square, and this is dealing with, the essentials of true life itself. That's why in every tarot card you're going to see those 4 signs when it comes to the major arcana, the world card, and you're going to also see it on the Wheel of Fortune. Is that's life, is the fixed energies of love and the connection to people and the value you have and what you came here with, your divinity that you value and hold, and your talent and your skill, and how you connect with that and you transform life, and how life is life and death and life and disconnect and reconnect in a new way and bring life and transform back into life. But this whole idea of completely stopping it is not in the astrology, because Capricorn doesn't stop things all the way. It might redirect the ship, but it keeps sailing on. What you notice is that no matter how much the world has stopped, it hasn't stopped. More people are out at the malls right now on this Christmas Eve and stuff like that when they're telling you not to be than ever, and they still allow it. But the moon in Taurus is going to have you weigh out what really feels good for you. And I think with Venus here in the South Node, you know, they're getting closer, but that square to Neptune's coming, and Venus with the nodes and Neptune, and that's coming on the full moon. We've seen Mars finish the square to Pluto, but if we notice, Pluto is at 2359 on Christmas, going to 24. So remember, Pluto this year came to that last line, right? It was like, okay, going 24, 25. Well, Pluto is still in shadow. There's a lot that's coming. All the planets are direct. And the sun's getting ready for its trine Uranus, but it's not happening on Christmas. Christmas is, you know, I cried today for just a second here. Not saying that, like, I don't care. It's more that I do care. It's that, you know, it's like my grandma's in a nursing home facility and hates being alone in there and doesn't like it, even though she has, like, one that's like you live in your own condo and they come to your condo in the same units. All the other condos, they're all nursing facilities. They're there for you if you need you, but you live your own life. But she can't see anybody, you know, and I have to Zoom her, and, you know, she's 91, and she's, you know, or 90. Oh, wait, she's born in 29, so yeah, she's 91. And she wasn't meant for this world. My other grandma died this year, and she was 94, and my brother and I were just saying last night on the phone, you know, we're happy she's in heaven, because this world wasn't meant for her, because they're looking, you know, I mean, imagine being super elderly right now. You're looked at as, like, well, don't go around you, but that's all the elderly want, right? The wisdom teachers teach us. We want to be around those. We learn our history, we learn our understanding, we learn more, we grow more from our elders. The highest form of respect is from the respect we give to our elders, yet this whole idea that we're giving respect in a different way, but they want the respect of just to be able to share and leave the information with us. That's what ancestry does. And it's another thing they're trying to do is stop ancestry and stop the line of lineations and passing down information. The chiefs in Native American, they pass on to the next chief and so forth. So, fucking crazy world, right? I mean, so as we come into this weekend, a couple things. You're not going to see throughout this whole, you know, Christmas time and coming into the weekend that Lilith Uranus. Believe it or not, we're all being pirates on this Christmas by just doing what we feel like we want to do. That brings us value. We're actually being pirates. That you're being a rebel. You're being a rebel on this Christmas by just celebrating Christmas. Now, if that doesn't fucking wake you up, I don't know what does. I hope people wake up on this Christmas and realize that they realize that all of the world, it depends on the country, of course, but for most of the countries and for most of the world, by you celebrating Christmas and you being around anybody else outside of what they call your household, you are a fucking rebel. And even people who buy into this whole fucking theory of this is going to be the way that changes the world and follows all this shit, guess what? They're being the rebel themselves too, a lot more than they will ever admit. They will never admit it, though. But they are. They have rebelled. And 25 Mars. Now, this is a big deal. We're getting 3 degrees now away from the shadow. And what's the big deal with this? And this is where the moon's in Gemini on Saturday. Woo! With the North Node. Okay, gonna make a trine to Jupiter Saturn at 1 degree. And now Saturn's at 1 degree. It's getting ready to get out of its shadow. It's got to make it all the way. But Jupiter's at almost a degree where Saturn went retrograde, even though Jupiter's out of shadow. But I'm trying to say there's a lot coming up about how we are going to deal differently. There's going to be a course of action here when we all get back from this holiday into, I'll show you guys with this full moon and next week, of are we going to go down the same road we went down in March and April, or are we going to fucking say different? Trump is going to come up a lot. And I'm just bringing the astrology. Why? Mars is about to trine his Mars. His Mars at 26 Leo. Okay? And he's a Gemini, and the moon and North Node are going to be here Saturday and Sunday into Monday, when Monday Mars is at 26 Leo. We also have Venus and Sag getting closer to his moon. And the sun on Christmas, remember, was a solar eclipse with Jupiter, which was the impeachment, going to impeachment. Four or 5 degrees is where that eclipse happened with Jupiter. Now we're stepping into the beginnings of also, remember the moon passed over Jupiter, Saturn in Capricorn while Jupiter or Saturn went into Aquarius, right? But we have the moon now is going to finally make a good aspect to Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius. We're going to feel the revolution, and Mercury's already looking at it, and the sun's primed up that day on Saturday and to Sunday to trine over to Uranus at 6 degrees. People are going to wake up this Christmas and realize that they just all as a family, with seeing another family member, seeing a lover that they don't live with, seeing anybody, just committed complete rebellion. If that doesn't wake you up, for anybody out there shaming everybody else, unless you sat at home by yourself, okay, unless you sat at home by yourself and you didn't see anybody at all, and you're the good little non-rebel, I'm sure that feels great, right? You think, people like more of the idea of being on a side, but everybody's living on the side that is the one being shamed, is what everybody's going to realize this Christmas. That everybody has swapped to liberty and freedom, which is Jupiter and Saturn and Aquarius, the moon trine it, and the sun trine Uranus, and the day after Christmas, and everybody's rebelled here. Everybody's rebelled, except the small portion. I got to predict it to be a small portion of people who didn't rebel in some sort of way. Everybody's rebelling, including the politicians and the people who tell you they're not. They're not. They're rebelling. They're rebelling. Off their own rules. They're pirates. I guess they're called, they're pirates too. This is the next one, Sunday. So, Sun's trining Uranus all through the weekend. This is definitely bringing us to new futures and new worlds and new people and new circumstances. And the moon in Gemini with the North Node is definitely bringing us into new territory of curiosity, of communication, and more importantly, of new sense of community with all this Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius stuff going on. We have Venus getting closer, 15, but we're going to see a little opposition there with the moon and Venus, right? So people, it's all about people with Sun trine Uranus, right? Uranus at 6, Black Moon Lilith, and Black Moon Lilith is just sitting there that whole time with Uranus in the trine. That means the Sun's trining Black Moon Lilith in Taurus. It's like we all want to feel good, and the moon in Gemini is curious enough to take common sense instead of the values of some sort of lost belief system that Venus is heading towards. Like, it might be the illusion that you'll feel better, and you might question yourself, like, I rebelled, I shouldn't have done that, oh God. Don't fall into that. Don't lose yourself here. Don't lose yourself as you are breaking the norms. That is what this is, the collective must do to change the world. You want to know what the light worker and what all this shit spiritually we're all talking about? We are breaking the norms. And now the norms are what to break, because it's not normal. And anybody trying to say the new normal is not normal. And it's okay to break that normal, because it's based upon belief systems that don't have any data with it. Remember, there's no data. They try to sell you that, well, the data shows that it was in preliminary this well, right? Like, you know how many people at Ford about the Pinto said, yeah, to the heads of Ford in the 70s, yeah, the Ford Pinto is great. Like, it runs great. It's doing well. They never took in the idea of being rear-ended in a Ford Pinto with the fucking fuel tank back there that blew people up. That's Uranus shit. That's why I'm saying this is an experiment that you do not want to walk down. Because there are things that they haven't thought about yet. Like frequencies, like Schumann Hertz, like electromagnetic pulses with re-engineering your DNA. Have they thought about that one yet? Or maybe they did. They just wanted to push it out. So you're going to have to learn that the rebellion is when you realize that everybody has rebelled already. And this whole entire thing this year, the collective has. At one point, and I know there's some people out there who haven't yet, but you know what? At this point, I don't even know. They're still human, but are they? As far as in the fact of the AI kind of energy with them? Like, they walk around, they drive with the fucking mask on and shit, and they're by themselves in a car? Like, are they thinking? I don't know. There's Pluto 24. Moving up the ladder. And so that Mars-Pluto square is still going on. And you gotta face your fears. To live your life. Capricorn wants to achieve. Sure, some of the plans might be dark. But not anymore. With Saturn in Aquarius. The ones that are trying to achieve darkness are going to lose, because people that are wanting to achieve life, and that doesn't mean stopping your life and giving away your sovereignty and giving away your freedoms. And I'm not trying to talk to you from some sort of American thing. I'm talking to you from an astrological Sun trine Uranus. I'm talking to you from Black Moon Lilith on Uranus. I'm talking to you from a moon in Gemini that's curious and also emotionally more interested in common sense than losing itself into the values of belief systems that are basically in square to Neptune, redonkulous and lost. And the new people acting as gurus on television that literally don't use common sense and won't talk to you about the truth, won't say the real shit's going on. We also see Jupiter and Saturn there, bang at 1. So yeah, they met at 0, and they're still meeting at 1. And that means that it's fully into gear. So we're going to see this collective energy sprouse up, and we're going to see your future in your own individual life start to reveal itself this weekend. Like, whoa, this is where it looks like things are going. Of course, it's Uranian, so there is I'm tilted. I see a new angle on life, and I don't know exactly how. I'm so used to driving the car this way. Now I'm in the UK, and I'm having to drive it on the other side of the road, and I'm on this way, and I have to shift with my left hand. It's a different feeling, but it's a new future we are going into, and not the one that they are trying to, in the dark, sell you on the new future. It's how the collective embodied itself through Christmas. They rebelled. So let me take you to the last two charts here. Let's go to Monday. Now, this is why I'm bringing up Trump, because we're going to see a lot start to come out of him next week, with Mars trining his Mars in Leo. We're also going to see a lot because the moon in Gemini will be all over his North Node, his sun, on that day. There's definitely, and if you just saw on the news coming into Christmas and stuff, you already saw he did a veto, and you already saw there's his world is about to be more put out than Joe Biden's world that we've been seeing more of. We haven't seen much of Trump's world. We're about to see Trump's world and his side of it all. So it's activated. What's also interesting, too, is Pluto is starting to oppose Joe Biden's Jupiter, the ruler of his chart, at 25 Cancer. And Black Moon Lilith is squaring Joe Biden's Pluto and Leo, and Uranus is finishing that there. And so the sun is going to quincunx his Pluto right up this weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if some shocking thing happens with Biden here. Maybe another dog trip. But on your life, that new future's been seen, and you're weighing out where that's going to go, because the moon does quincunx Pluto, and I have that in my chart. Part of Yod for me, but you know, there's a deep reflecting and needing to understand emotionally all the way and kind of go all the way before we really enact kind of this new future for our own lives. And but we're kind of realizing we have to do something, and we have to figure it out in our life. There's going to be a little bit of a void off course moon energy, so it's like a setup that's happening, because as we get to what's the setup, it is the full moon on Tuesday at 8 degrees of Cancer, 8 degrees of Capricorn, and Venus in the South Node square Neptune opposite here. Now, second full moon in Cancer, January 10th was the first one. Then that was full, right? Then we had the new moon, and that was an eclipse, right? So then there was another energy in Cancer, and that was the new moon solar eclipse. New moon, and that was on June 20th, right? Then we saw, I think it was July 20th. Might have been 19th, somewhere there and there, but it was there. It was another new moon in Cancer. I know, I was pissed. I'm a double Leo. But that was not an eclipse. No. Now, it's taken us to get to December 29th, and another not eclipse, but a full moon. This completes the nodal activity, because the fact that this is so rare. This is rare. Trust me, it's rare. You don't see two sets of new moons and full moons in the same zodiac sign, and with two of them being eclipses right away, and then the second two not being. This completes the weird activity from November. Yeah, I think it was like November of 2018 to May 5th of 2020. That's what this is hitting. And pulling you into this new world with Jupiter and Saturn. Because the moon is going to be in exact sextile almost within 1.5 degrees. It's 2 degrees actually of Uranus. And it's going to be in square to Chiron. So this is where you can't trap yourself into this Chiron. Well, it's kind of, this is weird, and I want it to look a different way. It's like looking a different way and going into new futures and new energies that have sovereignty, that have things that you actually want to have in your life are possible. And that's where comfort lies, is by facing the discomfort of going into something great and spectacular that feels good to you. And that also is not being determined by kind of these weird outcomes of determining, that you have to have like some sort of like weird courage, or like, it's like the deformed, soldier out there that, is all banged up, that, we have to all, give away our own comforts and our own land and our own life and our own liberties and our own everything, to make sure that they're okay the whole time. It's kind of crazy, right? So it reminds me this whole year of Saving Private Ryan and this full moon. I mean, it's definitely important in that movie for the U.S. military to make sure that they go get Private Ryan, because his brothers passed away in the war. They don't want to have to give another Department of War, because back then it was Department of War, right? It wasn't the Pentagon. Letter that your son has died, right? So let's take a lieutenant and take a bunch of his men and get him off whatever's going on, have him go find Ryan and bring him back. So there's that whole idea of like, to protect some mother and her emotions in America while they're fighting a war to save America and the world from a crazy motherfucker that is putting people in camps and inoculating people with vaccines. Don't get me started. So they go. They all don't make it, except Ryan. So the sacrifice that we're talking about, everybody else gets knocked down, but that one person doesn't, and a bunch of people, including Germans in that movie, get killed. A bunch of people don't make it, and Ryan makes it, and they show a scene of him when he's about to die, old. Remember those guys, and he goes to their graves. Like, okay, so, and we never see the mom's reaction. We just saw that he has a family or something, but it was all about the mother. It was never about Ryan so much. They didn't care about Ryan. They cared about the mom. They only cared about Ryan because of the mom, but we never see the mom at the end of that movie. We only see Ryan, that he survived. But everybody else does not get honored for that or anything, only through Ryan. And they were given orders to go do that. And they all said it was bullshit the whole time. But it's so funny that they make it, Steven Spielberg twisted in the movie in the end to make it be like, oh, well, was it for a higher good? Okay, there was some heroism in that, though. Wasn't like, sit down in this area and don't move. It'll save Ryan's life. That'd be like, basically, stop the war. Like, we had an agreement to stop the war to make sure Ryan gets out of the war. Okay, everybody stop fighting around the whole fucking World War II. Everybody just stop for 1 minute. Actually, it's going to take us more like 2 weeks. Stop for 2 weeks, and we swear that's all. All right, Ryan, get out. Okay. You know what? We just found fucking 5,000 more people that have moms that need to keep the war stopped and let people out. Now, actually, that'd be a great thing in life. Although you got to twist that, because I'm giving you a Uranian perspective, and go, actually, that's what's kind of happening right now. Everybody stopped their normal pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And there's some certain people that we need to fucking get out of this situation. And they're overwhelming us because we were realizing there's more that there is there. Well, why aren't you having all of us help? Or why don't you have all the people that you did shut down their businesses and all that? Why don't you have them fucking help? No. Sit back and buy off Amazon. Sit back and buy Apple. And sit back and buy shit with the money we give you. And we're going to give you rent moratorium. Maybe. Fully. Well, how's that one going to work? When the banks in February 2021, I read a bunch of the documents going to the banks. Like, the banks had to go to the big banks that did the money. So, you know, how's that one going to work? But the big banks that loan to the lenders that do that. How about all the people who, like for example, my studio, I pay the rent, but like, man, like they might go out of business. I think that's why they just painted my building, is because they were trying to sell it. They don't want to deal with this no more. So there's too many people getting fucked over, including the people that are being fucked over from the original intent. It shouldn't work that way. Does that make sense? Like, life doesn't work that way. That everybody gets fucked over because a couple people are getting fucked over. Like, really? But it's all with good love and intention, right? You don't hear them even say love. Or if you notice, Biden doesn't even say God. He says at the end, he's like, and he goes like, and something about our troops, but he doesn't say, like every other president, always is like, God bless the United States of America. He didn't say that. But he just says, make sure they're looking after our troops, like at the end. It's like very weird. So I'm just trying to say, like, this is a very weird time where a bunch of people that are telling you to do things and acting as if it's love can't even say the word love, can't even say the word God, can't even say anything in that divinity place at all, and are trusting this new religion of science that is the one thing that tries to discredit astrology. The predictability of astrology is better than the predictability of science. Because science is always just experimenting constantly. So, at the end of the day, this full moon is going to check on you after you went through a whole year of 4 now lunation cycles. 2 of them eclipses and 2 of them not. Of Cancer and Capricorn, but mainly Cancer, because new moon Cancer, right? That have to deal with, and especially with Uranus there, if you emotionally are ready to rebel to the better life and take the future to a better life, or are you going to be sucked in, Venus South Node, into picking partners who aren't on that road? Picking ideologies and, easygoing, like that looks carefree and chill, or even like being okay with the idea that, you can just like stop your life. It's not comfortable in the long run, and unless you're feeling comfortable in the moment, right? And Jupiter's going to be at 2 degrees. That's starting to square Uranus within 4 degrees. Like, who you choose in your future determines the world you're going to go in. This is where new worlds that you create, Uranus and Taurus, form. This full moon, especially dealing with the home and where you're going to embed your emotional self. And this is a check on your emotional roots and whether or not you are going to Capricorn and take a decision and pick your destiny and you know, be a leader of your new world, opposed to having leaders lead the new world. And this is a full moon that is going to trigger every event you went through that was karmic from November of 2018 to May 5th, that you went through about this whole paradigm of, was I restricting myself of what I emotionally feel comfortable with and what feels like home to me and what I'm stripping myself away or not? All those events. And with the Venus South Node conjunction, it's about relationships. And the relationships you choose with Jupiter and Saturn and Aquarius, square Uranus and Taurus, is going to determine whether or not you're choosing people that are going to go in the right direction or the wrong direction in your life. The ones that are going to either shame you and take away you, and are you going to give in and just be like, maybe this person will change later or something like that? Like, you have to be on the same fucking page, because anybody that's following the other narrative right now, that's going to follow the sheep into the herd. They just got rid of, at the WHO today, herd immunity, and they're calling it population immunity now. You never hear of herd control, but you know what you hear of is population control. So they have shifted it now at the WHO, to population immunity. I think what population immunity is the immunity that we build against the control of the population. That's what population immunity is to me. Not fucking, I'm going to fucking follow these people and they're going to try and, make the population, find immunity. Yeah, right. What about all the other things? Are they going to make everybody immune to fucking having cancer? Or if you want to use, everybody's going to be immune from pneumonia, or everybody's going to be immune from HIV, or everybody's going to be immune from herpes? Is everybody going to be immune from, like, there's the one vaccine they made kids take 15 years ago about, what is that one? It's another STD. But 99% of people will get it eventually one day, so why even take the fucking thing? Forgot the name of it. But, Venus is going to see if you have bought and sold yourself and your beliefs to the media, or if you're going with your feelings and truth and not being sheep to that fucking story. And this is going to be the last thing I finish here with, which is starting to ironically kind of build up here, is, so let's clear this chart real quick. And let's start counting, okay? So let's add 45. This 19 is going to stay all the way till we get to Aquarius. So it's going to just stick there. So we want to count 45 degrees, okay? So there's 20 degrees in this sign, but there's really 19. So, but we'll just do 20, and then we'll do another 20 from Taurus. That gets us to 10 Taurus is 40. 5 Taurus is 45, okay? So Uranus is in semi-square to the North Node now. They're not going to show that in a chart to the North Node. So you go 20 with 20 degrees, and then another 20 back, because once you get to 0 Aquarius or 0 Gemini, then you do another 20, and that gets you to 10 Taurus. Then you minus 5, that gets you to 5 Taurus. It's 19, so it's really about 4 degrees. So, you know, you're right in there, though. And you have Mars and heading towards Uranus, like I showed you at the beginning of this, towards the semi-square to the North Node. Talk about, even though the moon is making a great aspect to Uranus here, are you not willing to create your own curious environment in that world? Or, you know, are you just laying easy to, I'm going to just do whatever the world wants me to do comfortably wise. I'll give up whatever I want in an easy motion. Because this is where there's going to be some sort of sweeping weird motion. And I'm predicting it's going to involve Trump and the competition and stuff like that. Because that's where his Mars is. And then the media is going to have its narrative, and it's going to try and buy and sell you something with Venus there on the South Node. And this scares me. Uranus has been in semi-square to Neptune. Now we have Uranus in semi-square to the North Node that's been going on. And so the collective has been thrown so much information and disinformation from Neptune. And you know what? Go off the disinformation, not in the sense of getting so literal on every little word like people do, but get literal in the sense of the stories that are being told. Like the Mueller report. That was years and years and years. Fucking didn't happen, right? That they told you he's done. He's definitely gonna get out of office with impeachment, or da da da, or blah 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 blah. He's gonna do this, or he's gonna fucking die of COVID, or fucking da 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 blah blah. He's not gonna win the competition. This full moon and the next full moon is priming very negative aspects to Biden's Pluto at 7 Leo. The next full moon in Leo at 7, gonna be right on it. His 12th house ruler. Cancer rules his 8th house. So it's going to get weird. And the only way to stay in good weird is creating your world and being the rebel that you have to trust that you're okay when you're doing things from love. God is going to always have your back when you're doing things from living your life and connecting the way that's natural. So they don't talk about this either with this whole CV thing about immunity through making sure you're eating your fruits and vegetables, making sure that you're not eating like a shit bag every day, making sure that you are exercising and all that stuff. No, it's just wash your hands and fucking take this shot. Fucking that's it. And stay away from people and wear a mask. But but if you're eating like shit or you don't choose to eat, or you know what, you're just going to be addicted to fentanyl that we're, funneling into the country all the time and ODing and all this shit. You really think, like, when you look at the numbers of people that are overweight, diabetes, man, that is like, you're asking for it with this thing. You're asking for it with other things prior to that. This thing happening. That's not news. But it happens to be triggering in today's world. No, that's what they're not telling you on the news. You know, they always bypass that real quick. And the last thing I'll say about this full moon, since it's going to bring emotional tension, for those not excited about the world that they're creating for the collective and being with people that are excited about, you know, kind of creating their new world opposed to somebody else creating that new world for us, is Mars is 100% now. You know, we've already been engaged in it in the weird parts of, you know, this shadow that Mars has been under and the square to Pluto, right? And squares to Jupiter and Saturn, which are going to come when Mars comes into Taurus, but they've already been there. And with Mars being in the same place it was in 1941 with Pearl Harbor, and with where America has, I mean, literally, the beginning of this week started off with the George Washington nuclear submarine up in the Persian Gulf. Like, they never revealed themselves, told Iran, hey, we're here. The Israel military did the same thing. There was a huge attack in Baghdad by Iran on American embassy and all this kind of stuff. Like, and then they're threatening from the scientists that got killed with the nuclear stuff. You have a cyber attack that's happened. You have questions of the CCP while you have questions on Russia. You don't think that America's all lit up for fucking war right now? You don't think that a war might be even going on? And it's going to show up more. And this is why I wanted to show you in this full moon, because it's going to happen in this lunation cycle of the next month, is Mars is going to leave Aries and come into Taurus and meet with Uranus, and that is semi-square to the North Node. And Mars is going to come into a semi-square with Neptune. While it's going to be squaring Jupiter. While Mars is going to come in also and square Saturn, which is very rough. So I that's what I have said is why we are in Battle of the Gods. And it's going to be seen as like the avatars of the competition that we're seeing in that we can't talk about fully. And it's going to be seen in your freedom and your ability to live your life fully in every country. And if you're not awake to that shit and you don't believe it and you think that's all just some fucking hocus pocus shit, then you aren't not following the universe at all at this point. Or you're just trying to say that me as an astrologer telling you that is my perception. No, it's pretty clear. I've got a fucking good track record of the predictions. Pretty good. Especially I warned you about a fucking plague that would come that would be used to control people before 2020. Or I sat on a panel, and it's up there. You can watch the video on my YouTube in February of saying what was going to happen this year. While Susan Miller tried to say the opposite. And you need to pay attention to this a lot. And anything with those kind of energies, with all this crazy stuff, and pay attention to the sun as well. This is affecting people more than they realize, not only mental health wise, but also in whatever is going around. Because this thing, no matter how many things you do to wear that trash bag over your face, right? Seems to be spreading like wildfire. But it happens to be in areas that they just keep connecting more and more of that frequency up. So, which we're coming into a battle of frequency, which is why I started this whole thing with frequency. And this full moon is not just a full moon in Cancer. And I'm just going to say this to all the people out there, because remember, this is going to be on America's sun pretty close. Remember that the solar or the lunar eclipse was on America's sun in opposition, right? It was the sun on America's sun, right, on July 4th, and the moon was in opposition. This is a full moon that's coming to restore the energy of Cancer sun energy after having Jupiter, Saturn in opposition to it. So America, it looks like America might be going down the wrong road. And I don't want to float too much hope because it's South Node and Sag. But I'll give you some facts that the last 6 months, since the lunar eclipse that was on America's sun, has not looked good for America. And it looks like America is going to go down a shitter, right? But this full moon just might give it something positive. And with Uranus coming into a nice direct motion at the beginning of 2021 and going to sextile America's sun, this is a restorative energy of the moon that's going to help bring back to the sun that it took away with the moon in Capricorn lunar eclipse, right? So, that was in between 2 new moons in Cancer. You won't hear this anywhere else, I guarantee it. And if you're going to go out there, I just ask you to please be advised of other astrologers that are just going to like talk about some of the most basic bullshit you've ever heard in your whole life on this full moon in Cancer and not connect any of the dots. And if they connect any of these dots, you know where it fucking came from. Because I just went 3 fucking hours or something like that, 3 hours and 4 minutes on this, just to break down this week. When really I was just trying to do a quick video real quick to help all my employees out so they can have Christmas off. And I ended up connecting to you a lot of fucking dots. And I guarantee you, if any of them start saying, oh, this is going to be the 4th lunation in Cancer, fucking, yeah, they haven't been doing shit. I fucking follow everybody. Nobody's talking about it. And if they do, and if you see those memes again on Instagram, you know where that shit came from. They just jack it. They watch this shit. Caught many people. It's on my Instagram, on my stories. You can look at where it, you know, it's on my IGTV where I'm like, straight up, like, forgot what I named it, but I think I named it like fraud. So this is restoring your emotional sovereignty. If you are willing to make the choice and to pick the side that allows that in your own life, and the people that want that too, and that will be the people that will be successful moving forward. The people who will not be successful moving forward is buying the story that you know that is compromising so many others in the world. Because it looks like, by the numbers and by the media, that we are compromising all these people. No, look at the flip of those numbers that are not in those numbers. Dramatically bigger. Dramatically. That's fact. Hype is Sag, and the hype is on the fucking smaller number, without having you pay attention to the bigger number that you're in. Or maybe you're not in. Of course, we all get affected by this thing, but let's be real. Are you going to restore your emotional sovereignty on the right side of the tracks with the right people? Even with Chiron and Aries, if it doesn't look like the person or the energies that you want, but it is on the same team, you got to really fucking put that one into perspective for some people. Why do you think AOC and like Ted Cruz were talking about how like not having this bill? And they're very opposite sides of the aisle. I couldn't believe it when I read on CNN today that Trump's right about $2,000 stimulus. But then when he vetoes it, now he's not. You know what I mean? Like, wow. That's how fast people can shift on you, right? I'm not saying that it's all about Trump. I'm just saying, like, a good example just in the press and the media of how You really think that anything that comes out of their mouth is fucking real? Some of it. But most of it has an agenda, and most of it has an agenda with all the big medias that are all part of one media conglomerate, and you don't get your press passes unless you all follow the same narrative and the Associated Press, and you need to understand how media works. I've been in it a long time. So I'm not just telling you this, and especially I'm going to just say this, and I have a lot, you know what I put on my Parler? And please go follow me on Parler, because that's where I speak my truth, because I can't anymore on Instagram and Facebook. But you know what? It's just like, I hate, no, I'm not going to say that word, but I dislike so much of my Hollywood friends and stuff like that act like they know all this shit, but they weren't ever in television. Like TV. They were in other stuff, or you know what I mean? Like they didn't bounce around. TV bounces around. Like you have to bounce around to be in TV. And not like series either, like fucking reality shows and talk shows and the stuff that's what's feeding you the info. I have plenty of video of me on these news networks and stuff like that. I have plenty of video of me on these entertainment networks. I have plenty of video of me with these celebrities and shit and seeing the back doors and seeing how it all works. I'm just trying to tell you that there's a narrative. And if you go against that narrative in media, you are fucking, it's not allowed, number one. And number two, they won't air it. So they wouldn't let me air many things I wanted to say. In 2014 on Keke Palmer on BET, when I'm like, straight up, I'm like, Beyonce and Jay-Z, they're not looking good for 2015. Saturn's coming into Sag. You know, she's a Virgo. He's a Sag. I'm like, some weird shit. Neptune's there. I'm like, we're going to see the Saturn-Neptune square 2015 coming up, the beginnings of that. I'm like, there's going to be secrets exposed, all this weird shit. They didn't let me air that. You know why? Because they were BET artists. So then they cut me saying that and went, oh, you know, and it wasn't Keke. It's the producers. Because Keke's cool as fuck. And I'm just trying to tell you that, like, I call out their fucking weird fiasco, and they don't let me air it because it's going to offend them in the contracts, and they don't want to air that to people. They don't want to air the truth to you. So I have been in it from the stupidest of things to talk about to pushing it, and I'm just trying to tell you, that's why I do what I do, and what I told myself, and I think it's on, it's either my Telegram or it's on my Parler, and that when I call myself celebrity astrology now, it's just celebrity astrologer to the light workers that are the new celebrities. That's what I'm coining myself as, celebrity astrologer now. I'm a celebrity astrologer to the light workers that fucking are the celebrities now. That the new celebrity is the light worker that's spitting the truth. It is not these fucking people that are following narratives and trying to look good to other people. I'm trying to tell you, Aquarius, you're not trusted in Aquarius, right? Aquarius has always come up to you when you're the unique one, when you're the one that's a little different. They don't trust when the herd's doing the same thing. Aquarians don't trust that shit. No Aquarian will date anybody who's normal. And when they do, and then they marry them, they lose their edge and they almost turn into weirdness. But eventually, they'll remember that they are unique and wild. So all I'm trying to tell you here is, the more you keep following the same story that's been told this whole entire fucking year by the mainstream, Neptune, square of the nodes, and with Venus here, you're either have been bought and sold, or you know what, there's going to be people where you're going to have to disconnect. Part of Aquarius is you have to disconnect. Like when I got sober off drugs, I had to stop hanging out with those friends of mine. Doesn't mean I don't care for them or I don't love them, but they're not good for me in my life. And it doesn't mean I'm not in contact with them or still stay friendly with them, but I stopped putting my energy around their field, my frequency and their frequency. We can all still live amazingly and harmonious on this planet without hating each other, without going to war with each other. But, you know, there's just some people who are just going to stay on the cocktail, Neptune, drunk, or on drugs with this mainstream narrative story. And you know what? They need an intervention, but we don't need to do it to them. Maybe the intervention is by all of us not showing up. And maybe that's what will help. That's all I got. I hope that you spread this. You never know with what's going on with the world. So I'm on Parler, and mainly I'm on highvibe.tv. That's where you will find me, because that's the stuff I I can't. I'm not gonna be able to just sit here and not rap my truth. You know what I mean? And any day and any second, that's gone. You're seeing it everywhere. So, and I'm using astrology. So, that's a pseudoscience, and I've been warning people, and everybody got mad on my competition video about those two competitors and how I said that the one competitor that happens to be being broadcasted as being the victor of this competition is the one who is in alignment with all the people and the governments that are in alignment with saying that astrology is a pseudoscience and that everybody should fucking get off that shit. So if you're watching this shit and you're in that team, you better fucking think about that shit. I've been warning you, and that's a prediction that I made. When was that? It was like a couple days before the competition. So last couple months I've been warning you. And that shit's going to come out harsher than you ever realize. We have two choices with this Jupiter. I always notice, especially with Aquarius, things can flip to heads or tails. Okay? The heads is going to be that America shows the world how to be free and different, like we usually do. And hopefully, but it's not usual right now. So we redo it again, and that's unusual. And then that creates the unusual energy. Or we're not, and we're going to have to fight for our freedom all over again. So you need to start taking that as a serious truth, and you can't hope for it to be based off whoever wins this competition either, although there is a big part of that. But I'm going to say that at the end of the day, even if, let's say, the side wins that is against your freedom, you're going to have to fight up against it. And even if the side wins that's for the freedom, they're going to still come after all that, and you're still going to have to fight for it. But it'll be just depending on what side of the heads or tails you are on that, where it's like we're fully fucked, or we're at least able to express it, but we got to fight for it still. I'd rather, like I said, be the rat, and we're still in the year of the rat. Don't forget about that. And the rat wins the race, right? When you think you can't, that the rat can't win the race. And I'm just trying to say, like, you have to be that rat in your life and be smart, and you need to be very smart about your future, and you got to think ahead, and you got to think of ways to work and who you're in alignment with. If you're in alignment with any other thing and not the ox, right? Like, it doesn't work. So are you willing to experiment with that? And I think that the harshest truth is when you go down the truth hole, like, you can see who brings more truth than not. And it's when they express themselves fully and they are not curtailed. And this is North Node Gemini. It is about spitting your truth, and it might seem crazy, and it might go against the South Node and Sag and the professors and all these things, because now professors are scientists. It's like they've combined the two because they're making scientists the new professors. But I'm just saying that the school is the viewers on the audience on television from only certain science places too. And I'm just trying to say that that's scary. And if you are not worried about that on this Christmas and praying to God to ask for God to help intervene and bring the truth back to the people and bring the power back to the people to take back that power within themselves of that liberty and of not falling for some sort of scientific bioengineered fucking religion, following people who are really all about that too. Anyway, Merry Christmas. And that's the ultimate gift we have, is before 2021 comes, the greatest gift, it's not physical. The greatest gift is the people. The greatest gift is that we're still alive in this world. The greatest gift that is that it has not been fully taken away from us yet, and we can still restore that truth and that sovereignty within ourselves. And that is something to appreciate more than ever on this Christmas Eve into this Christmas. Because Jesus, to become Christ, had to do the same. I'm not saying that you have to die for this one, though. Because we're not at that point. That's where it goes, though, if we don't. I love you all very much. I'll see you on the next Deep Astrology. I guess we got deep, right? So, you know. All right. Love you all. Bye.